you know, guys, this is, of course, Mr. Number One, George South, inyourhead.com, and just, you know, there's not old school or new school. There's just right and there's just wrong.
All right, we are back, and we are joined by the last wrestler himself, George South. Welcome to In Your Head.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, man. It's my privilege, and I just appreciate y'all having me on. Thank you.
It's cool to have you on.
How are you doing this evening?
Man, we're doing real good. I actually stepped back here in the back so I could have a free moment. I got 5 children here at the house, and you can imagine how wild it gets. So maybe they won't interrupt us.
Well, if they want to say hi, they can say hi.
Well, they're I hope they're doing their homework. I kind of left them in there with my wife, so I'm hoping they're doing their homework. I tell people all the time, you know, being on the road in cage matches ain't hard. Stay here at the house for about 2 days. That's hard.
Is it your oldest son that's a wrestler?
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah, George Jr. Yeah, he'd, you know, I joke with everybody. He actually got in the ring first time when he was about 4 years old, and you know, so he pretty much grew up around it and has always been in the ring. And probably about 5 years ago, we got kind of serious, you know, about training, and so he's doing real good. He's actually going on, you know, on the road with me, and he's doing real good.
Were you the one who trained him?
Yeah, I sure will. I wouldn't have had it no other, I wouldn't have had it no other way. He kind of learned, you know, just by going to the matches, you know, with me a lot too. You know, just being around a lot of the older guys, and you know, it was kind of neat. You know, at 10 and 11 years old, he knew, you know, he knew when a good match was good and when one was bad. You know, just by being around it.
Right.
Yeah, he's doing real good.
Yeah. Do you guys do any tag teaming together?
Some, you know, we do the annual Anderson brothers from Ole and Gene. We do an annual tag team tournament each year, and we've got the 3rd one coming this year, and we're hoping to tag in that, and it'll be, you know, one of the first times that we've really, you know, just focused on that. We do a lot of my shows around the Carolinas, and we get a chance to, you know, get in the ring together. So, and I still yell at him and correct him, so I don't think he likes that too much. But
oh, you got a caller here. Who is this?
It's Jason.
Hey, you're on air with George South. You got a question?
Hey, Jason.
Yes, I do. Hey, I have a question I think you're going to really enjoy answering. I want to know about the Paul Jones watch.
Oh, my goodness. That is a very, very unique story. A lot of the fans, biggest reason it means a lot to me going back to Paul Jones, he was like my favorite as a kid. I mean, here in Charlotte, of course, he was a very big name wrestler, and of course, we could go to the matches every Monday night, and I really got to know Paul as a very, you know, just a young fan. Of course, this was when you could walk right up to a wrestler and, you know, talk to him, and, you know, just, you'd actually build a relationship with these guys. You know, now it's kind of sad. You get close to them, and, you know, the security's going to haul you out the back door. But I just got to know Paul, and he was just a big, big favorite of mine, and they actually held a contest. It was a yearly contest where, I mean, it was for real. I mean, the most wrestlers that got the most votes, and all they asked you to do is send in a little postcard. You know, they actually got this gold watch, and he gave one away each year, and the very first year they done it. Of course, Paul Jones, I remember using all my grass cutting money, you know, and buying postcards, and just trying to help Paul win this thing. Well, he did. I mean, they announced on television, they presented Paul. It was like 1974, and Jason, they presented Paul with this watch, and it was just the neatest thing because, see, they couldn't do nothing like that now because the promoters or whoever, you know, they'd work it to where they, you know, they would let win whoever they wanted to win.
Right.
Instead of more or less letting the fans vote. So that was kind of unique. But, you know, all these years, you know, almost 20 years went by, and no one ever really knew what happened to this watch. And it was kind of a neat story. Paul actually owned a car dealership here in Charlotte, and I used to go by once a week, and of course he's retired, and we'd go out to eat, and man, I was sitting in his office one day, and he opened up the dress door, and it's like something out of a movie of the week. He pitched that watch over to me, and we joked because I had my little 3-year-old on my lap, and I about dropped my kid, you know, to catch the watch. And but anyway, so he presented me with that watch, and I've actually got that watch in my, you know, in my little museum, and actually Bill Apter and them got heard of it, and they actually did a story in one of the Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of unique. They had a picture of Paul, real old picture when he won it, and then of course him and me to watch now. So anyway, it was kind of a neat thing, Jason. That's probably one of my most precious things is just to have that. Of course, it's got the date on it, and it was just pretty neat, man. But for me to end up with it.
Does the watch still run?
No, I'm afraid to take it out of the case to see.
Right.
It's still in the original case. Of course, it says Mid-Atlantic, Championship Wrestling across the front of it. And what was so unique about it is if one of the underneath guys would have actually got more votes, they would have gave him that watch.
Mm-hmm.
So they just let, that was the one time they let the fans, have an opinion about it. And whoever got the most votes, they counted them up. And it was kind of a neat story, And so anyway, Paul won it. And so now I got it, and he ain't getting it back. So it was kind of neat when we left his car dealership. These old-timers have got this, sense of humor that only they understand, And Paul walked me out to the car, and he said, that watch I just gave you, he said, I need it back. And, man, I was ready to fight somebody. And I said, what do you mean? He said, man, you can't have that watch. He said, it means the world to me. And I didn't know whether to start crying or hit him. So, but I went to give him the watch back, and he said, oh, take it. I'm just, ribbing you. And,
right.
Of course, I didn't think it was too funny, but he did, And I got my car, and I got out of there pretty quick. So, but it's neat, Jason. It's just that, they could never have a contest like that again because, let's say, the Hurricane got more votes or somebody like that. They wouldn't let, they wouldn't let Hurricane win it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Present whoever they wanted to win it, whether they got enough votes or not. So that made it kind of neat.
You got another question, Jason?
No, thank you.
All right, thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, buddy.
Is Paul Jones okay with you using the number one name?
Oh, yeah. I laugh because, of course, he still says he's number one. I wouldn't have had it. I stole it from him and don't care if he likes it or not. I mean, that's just kind of I do all of his stuff. I do. Of course, he says I can't do it as good as him. I do his airplane spin, and what's so unique is the moves that he done. I do now, and some of your fans have never seen this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just some of the basic, simplest moves that you'll ever see. But it's getting over a lot now because people have never seen it.
Yeah, you think instead of guys keep doing all these different flips and stuff, they could go back and look at some old tapes and find some moves that no one does anymore.
Man, I just watched a tape of Paul and Jack Briscoe from Florida. And, it's kind of like what Ric Flair says. Everybody talks about the great matches that him and Steamboat had, but, Flair and Steamboat have said that some of their best matches, no one ever, got on tape.
Right.
It was in some little high school gym in front of 500 people, and that's what's, that you're exactly right. You can put some of this old stuff in, and, the object ain't, I laugh because I go, man, I'm on the road about 6 days a week, and I go to a lot of these shows, and I'm always looking for, young guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not only my training school, but you would think in the last 10 years that I would have a whole briefcase full of business cards, but I don't.
Right.
Half the guys out there, not only do I don't want their business card, I don't even want my number, and it's kind of sad actually. But it's just, and I could go on about that all days, but it's hard when there's not enough guys to really train, and so I give them a chance, but most of them before they ever step in the ring, they usually say something stupid or act stupid, and you just don't want them around.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh when I hear these young kids brag about how many matches they've had, and when I've never seen them before in my life. So I said, well, wait a minute, I don't know if that's true or not. So, and the biggest thing missing is I get excited is, and my students understand this with me, but it used to be an honor to get corrected.
Right.
I remember the very first TV match I ever wrestled was with Jerry Lawler down in Georgia Championship Wrestling. And, of course, this is way before, Cablevision, time, anything like that. It was just, cable had just started with Ted Turner and wasn't really getting all that big yet. Anyway, I worked Jerry Lawler, and I was just this young, snot-nosed kid that thought I knew everything. And Ole was, of course, in charge, Ole Anderson, and, man, I screwed up a million times. And, Ole jumped down my throat, corrected me, but it was an honor to be corrected.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I've learned from that. Nowadays, you correct somebody, buddy, you're probably gonna get sued. I mean, I'm telling you, you can't. I see these young kids go out and they don't want to be told, you know, what they done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just well, like anything else. I mean, I know times have changed, but you know, in professional wrestling, sometimes change ain't good. I guess I'm just living proof of that. So,
what would be like the biggest mistake you see the young guys making that you would like to correct?
Sitting in the dressing room and talking over the match. I honestly believe that. You know, years ago, I remember when Great Muta came to the United States for Jim Crockett. I had his first match, and it was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And in Raleigh, the dressing rooms are not together.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. I'm on one side of this Coliseum, and Great Muta's on the other. Now, again, this is way before anybody's seen any of this, you know, moonsaults or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you just had to go out there, and of course I was scared to death, but we had a decent little match. I mean, Muta carried me, but what I'm saying is we didn't even have a chance. And that's what I hate. And my guys, you'll never see one of my students do that. I just, you know, everybody brags about all these great matches on TV, and, you know, I tell them, what better be in, because they've been talking about it for 2 weeks.
Right.
And see, that's the thing. But if someone has not been trained to do it different, you know, if the dress rooms wasn't together now,
mm-hmm.
You couldn't do a wrestling show. I honestly believe that. And see, the one that pays for that is the fans. And I'm so thankful. I'd hate to break into business now. I mean, I believe that. I mean, I came along, and I'm just so thankful for when I did, because it's just different. And I don't teach my guys that way, because I laugh sometimes, because I ask these guys, you know, they'll have a 5-minute match, but they've been talking for like 2 hours.
Right.
And usually they forget it all once the bell rings anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest question nobody can answer for me is, what happens if the people don't like that? I mean, do you still do it?
Yeah.
Or do you change? You see, and see what worked on a Monday night ain't going to work on a Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I'll tell you the perfect example where a lot of these young fans would relate. A couple of years ago at WrestleMania, and this is, and I very seldom watch much of that, but it was when Rock fought Hulk Hogan. Now, on paper, and what everybody agreed, you know, Hogan's supposed to go out and be this heel, and Rock was going to be the big baby face. But everybody forgot to ask the fans what they wanted to see. And that was a very, very special match, because in a split second, and that just shows you how great, you know, Rock is, in a split second, he realized, you know, we're going to have some fun here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to switch this thing. See, nobody told him to do that.
Right.
See? Nowadays, if that happened now, somebody'd be mad at Hulk, because he's getting more cheers than they're getting.
Right.
See? And they couldn't adjust. And the biggest reason that, you know, the old-timers have taught me is, you got to adjust to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, do you work babyface or heel? I've never changed. Let the people choose. And I'm going to tell you right now, boys, the biggest thing that's wrong with wrestling, see, we're not going, you know, we're not curing brain cancer here. I tell them professional wrestling is simple. It's good and it's bad, and good always wins.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's happened these last few years? We've got above the fans' heads. I mean, fans actually have to go to college now to understand the finish. And I'm telling you, it's just 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Nobody, you know, them old timers used to tell me, put an old John Wayne movie in. Just shut your mouth and listen, put an old John Wayne movie in. And wrestling's no different.
Yeah.
The guys with the white hat have got to win in the end.
Mm-hmm.
See, now, you might get heat and you might burn the town to the ground. It's still a ranch. But, buddy, the Lone Ranger's coming in at the end. And you know what's wrong now is you watch it now and you tell me who's good and who's bad. The good guys come out cussing, drinking beer, eating worms. And you tell me what the bad guy's supposed to do. That's what's wrong with pro wrestling. And, you know, people say, George, you got to change with the times. And I'm telling you something, you know, I ain't, you know, if I'm wrong, then somebody's got to show me something different. And that's really we're above the people's heads now, man. I'm telling you, it used to be, I remember when a kid, if I seen that bad guy, that's what I teach my guys. I can get more heat in a match pulling the baby face's trunks or pulling his hair.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't got to catch nobody on fire. I ain't got to run over nobody with no truck. I just pull them down by the hair. And see, the reason that gets over is the ref don't see it, but the fans are mad because they seen it.
Mm-hmm. You think they're just making it harder for themselves?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, see, the biggest thing is, and I just, it's so hard, it's easier to show it, but the young kids, I can take somebody that has never been in a ring and make them a half-decent worker.
Mm-hmm.
As if you give me somebody that's always, most guys have been trained 10 different ways, and none of them dry. So you almost got to deep train them,
right.
if that makes sense,
mm-hmm.
and start all over. And I'm telling you, it's hard. And they'll look right at me, and see, my biggest thing is, 27 years in the business, I've been yelled at a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, I've had more old timers tell me I've ruined their career and messed their career up, and but I learned from it. And it's just the littlest things. I've seen a guy do a sleeper hold, the simplest move in wrestling, and it was one of the and it was one of the middle card names that everybody would recognize. But he just did it wrong. About broke the guy's nose and everything. So in the dressing room, I just asked him, would he mind me showing him the correct way?
Uh-huh.
Boys, you can imagine what he did. He cut an interview on me. He said, well, I don't do it that way. I do it this way. And, of course, what was so neat, the dressing room was full of a bunch of old-timers,
right.
And every one of them, I didn't have to say a word. Every one of them old-timers told this guy, you can't do it the way you want to. There's only one way to do it, see? And see, here's the whole secret. If he or anybody else would have said, okay, would you mind showing me, see, it would have stopped right then.
Mm-hmm.
So every time this guy done a sleeper from that point on, he would have done it right.
Mm-hmm.
See, he left that building, and I know I'm getting on a roll here, but he left that building still not knowing how to do a sleeper.
Well, what do you think?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, what do you think, if somebody was like that back when you were breaking in, what do you think would have happened to him?
Oh, they'd have beat the crap out of you. I mean, see, you can't do it now because you'll get sued or you'll
right.
get, arrested. But I'm telling you, if they didn't want you in a dressing room, they took care of it right then. Listen, I've seen Buzz Sawyer, I've seen Bruiser Brody, and I'm telling you, if you did this to people now, they'd put you in jail.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff that those guys did to guys, the guys were deserving. I mean, everybody says how much a bully Buzz Sawyer was and Ole Anderson, but, man, I was there. And a lot of that stuff, those guys in that ring deserved. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen people walk up to Bruiser Brody and tell him what they're going to do out there. And that lasted for about 5 seconds. You see, and but what I'm saying is that wasn't such a bad thing because, guys, it was took care of then.
Right, it was taken care of.
Listen, we did TV one time for WCW and Mike Rotundo when they were doing a varsity club, and it was just a regular TV match.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was this kid here from Florida, who all of a sudden thought, I'm going over here. And listen, if you think you're going to win a match, please don't let it be against Dr. Death Steve Williams and Mike Rotundo.
Ooh.
And so, you're thinking, what's this guy thinking? And
right.
Well, they didn't, the match was over, and the fun didn't start till they got back to the dressing room. And, Dr. Death didn't even get to him. Mike Rotundo had him tied in a knot throwing up, in the hallway. And just held him there. And, that's what amazes me about people. We was just in the dressing room this past weekend. This guy walks up to my guys, tells them right off the bat that he's had 1,000 matches. And listen, I can't tell you that guy's name now, but every time I see this guy, I'm gonna consider him probably the biggest idiot I ever met in my life. Nobody, it's like the old, when Lou Thez walked in the dressing room, he didn't have to tell you how tough he was.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you're bragging about it, you pretty much, ain't got nothing to brag about.
Right. And
this guy, he could have been a great guy, but the minute he told my guys that he's had 1,000 matches, when we all, if they, any independent show in the Carolinas, either me or my guys are at, and we knew we've never seen this guy.
Right.
So automatically, I guess he was just trying to impress somebody, but but it didn't work. And and then of course all it took was for him to put his wrestling gear on, and I looked down, he didn't even have wrestling boots. It was like he's Tom back looking grass cutting.
Right. Is that something that annoyed? I was just saying, is that something that annoys you? Got like younger guys that don't have like the proper ring gear.
Oh, I hate that.
Like a T-shirt and
I hate that. And listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm 45 years old, and I still wrestle in trunks. Now, I'm not as in good a shape as I was at one time, but don't nobody tell me you got to wrestle with a T-shirt on. That's ridiculous. And see, I do a lot of stuff with, of course, I know you guys know, High Spots, here in Charlotte.com. They got everything in the world imaginable with wrestling, and I said that because there's no excuse for anybody not to have boots or gear. Because I'm not saying you got to spend $3,000 on gear, but buddy, they'll help you get into something. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's a $40 pair of wrestling boots. And see, it all goes back. If somebody pays $10 for a ticket, $15 for a ticket, man, you got to look the part.
Right.
And it's just the old grouch in me. But I hate the long baggy pants. I hate that. And it's just me. And I know some guys, that they look good in it. But anyway, it's just I love the trunks. I love the knee pads. I love it, and I may pull them up to my chest. Cover up my big belly. But buddy, I'm in trunks. Let me tell you.
Right. Yeah, I must have fit someone's character.
Hey, some of these guys got better bodies. I mean, some of these guys got $1 million bodies. They go to the ring with a T-shirt on.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, here's what's wrong with wrestling. I got a little 6-year-old kid. He's got all the wrestling men, all the rings like everybody else. I was walking through the living room 2 days ago. I looked down the floor. There's 6 wrestling men laying in the floor.
Right.
And I said, Garrett, that's my boy's name. I said, where did you get 6 Batistas at? Because all these men are laying there with all tattoos on their back and red tight. You know what my son tells me? He said, Daddy, all them ain't Batistas. He said, there's 6 different guys. Now you explain that, and he's right. One of them was Batista. One of them's Brock Lesnar. One of them was that to call me kid. But every one of them had tattoos on their back.
Right.
And see, and I'm just saying that's a crazy illustration, but see, that's what's wrong. I'm so out of shape now, I would probably go to WWE and be the biggest thing in the world. Over like $1 million because I would look so different. And see, that's what made wrestling so special when we were all young is, man, you had big Haystacks Calhoun. I mean, you had midgets. You had guys in great shape. You had football players. Man, there was something for everybody.
Yeah,
I'm telling you now, I can't tell them apart.
You think it's because there's only like really one major wrestling on TV?
Yeah, see, the biggest thing is I tell people, I've never, 27 years of business, I've never been under contract, guys. Most people think if you're not in WWE right now, you're not making money. And I'm telling you, boys, that they got a great organization up there, but there's still a great living to be made in professional wrestling. You say, yeah, how? Listen, I've done it all. I flipped hamburger when I first started. Man, I tell these young kids that come to me want me to train them. See, the first thing is they've been told by their moms and dads and their wives or whatever, honey, we're tired of you working up here at this part-time job. You need to go be a wrestler. So that's all it is. They have no love for the business. They want a contract. I'm telling you, usually before we stretch a guy and send him on his way, we tell him, buddy, you're not getting a contract. And my guys laugh at me because I tell them, listen, I'm not rich. So nobody's getting rich before George South gets rich. And see, well, wait a minute, I didn't know that. I thought Vince McMahon's going to take a look at it. And I said, no, he's not. And see, that's the whole thing. I mean, it's like I tell everybody, if I had you come, guys, and paint my house, you better have painted some houses before you get to me.
Right.
No, wrestling's no different. I tell these young kids that come to me, man, I don't even know what they've been taught. Most kids, when I give them a broom and I say, sweep out my ring, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I come back and the broom's laying in the middle of my ring. These guys have gone. They left. What do you mean? You're gonna be a wrestler, but I can't get you to sweep out my ring? See, I wish everybody that got a contract had to be put on a ring crew for about 2 years. And I'm telling you what, boy, that's why I love Ric Flair so much. Buddy, I tell you, I'll fight anybody that talks about Ric Flair. See, when Ric Flair quits, guys, that's my last ties the way wrestling was when I growed up. He's the last one left. See, the reason they got to keep Ric Flair up there is, and it ain't working, guys, they're hoping some of Ric Flair's love for professional wrestling wears off on some of these young guys. And it ain't, guys. I mean, you can teach them a few moves, but buddy, as I tell these young kids, man, if it ain't in your heart, I can't put it there. And see, that's what's missing.
Yeah. Do you definitely see a difference, someone who grew up as a wrestling fan, making into wrestling, they have a better chance of doing it than someone who's just coming in for the money?
Oh, yes. You know, and here's the point, guys. I tell my students this. Listen, you can be broke, you can be homeless, you can be living under a bridge, but you can know how to work, buddy. You see what I'm saying? Just because you got $100 million in the bank don't mean you got my respect.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It don't mean you can go out there and have a match. See? And what I mean by that is I tell these guys, you learn this business first. Wally McDown used to tell me all the time, and I learned it, you know, way before he smacked me, is that, you know, don't worry about the money now. You learn this business. What's wrong with our business? Everybody wants the money first. Even if I give you $100,000 a year, what are you going to give me back? Are you going to draw that? You know what old promoters used to do? They used to put one name in a high school gym by itself. Just one name, not 30 names. See how many people come out to see him. What if you did that right now? Man, these pay-per-views and these WrestleMania, they better sell 100,000 tickets. You got 80 top names on the card. Put one of those guys in a Walmart at an autograph session and say, okay, let's see how many people go see him.
Right.
Boy, I'm telling you what. See, I'm telling you, it ain't brain surgery. Guys, it's just, you know, I usually make too many people mad. They don't want to hear it, and man, I want it good for everybody. I mean, you'll never kill wrestling. I mean, it's you know, it's got low, and it probably get lower than it is now, but wrestling's always going to be around. As long as I've got a ring in my front yard, buddy, there's going to be pro wrestling. Let me tell you that now, guys.
I want to tell everybody how. I was to say, you want to tell everybody how you can join your wrestling school?
Yeah, I've actually got a neat little website. It's so funny because people say George South's got a website, and you know, them two things don't go together. But I used to, like all the old timers, I'd give somebody a business card or give them a phone number, and I got a buddy of mine who actually does the Mid-Atlantic Wrestling Gateway, just an old great site of just old timey pro wrestling. Anyway, he approached me, and we've become real good friends. And he said, "Man, we ought to do your little website. You know, you'll reach more people on your website in a day." Right. Your business cards are doing a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, me, I can't even turn a computer on, but I got a neat little website, boys. But it's just georgesouth.com. You know, it's real simple. I got some neat little pictures and stuff. Of course, our upcoming shows, and of course, they can always email me, and then I'll talk with them about our school. You know, we train 2 days a week, and the very, very unique thing with my school is not only do you train, you get a place to go wrestle. That's one reason I run, you know, about 3 shows a week. Is, you know, you can only train somebody in a room so long, and then they want to go have a match. And then that's the only way you're ever going to learn is in front of people. I don't care if it's 5 people. That's where you learn.
I was just saying we met those guys at the Capitol Wrestling Fan Fest.
Yeah, exactly, man. There's some great guys. I made 2 of them. My Bobby Houston and Jake Manning. I made them go for an hour the other night, and man, they were cussing me, about to throw up, about to die. But buddy, they went an hour, and I laugh because sometimes I may read some of these, you know, sheets or whatever, and they talk about these guys going an hour, you know, up north or something. And I laugh because I said, man, my guys about twice a week have to go an hour. Now they might repeat some of the same moves, and I don't care because where else are they going to learn? So that's the biggest thing. If you come to my shows and you see a guy mess up, I'll make him do it over. He said, oh, man, don't you think the fans are going to think that's weird? I said, listen, where else are you going to learn? And I'll make these guys, if I'm in there with them, they screw up with me, we'll do the same thing right after that. And see, here's the biggest thing, man. I'm telling you, those guys are learning, and see, I'm putting them in front of people. That's what happened to the power plant down in Atlanta, guys. You know, it was a state-of-art building, man. It had 3 rings set up. It was one of the most unique training centers, air conditioned, you know, video screens so you could watch your matches, but they never ran no shows. See, a lot of people never even heard of that place, but the power plant shut down.
Right.
So where's all these students that went through that power plant? Ain't none of them working for WWE right now. You see? But they never ran no shows. I tell you what, we just had one of the WWE guys come through town here, and I went and had lunch with them, and we were sitting there eating at this little sandwich shop, and it was funny because I said, guys, I said, listen, I said, man, I wish I was booking WWE. I said, I'd go book every high school gym in 50 states. I said, we'd run 3 shows a night. And, man, those guys quit eating, and they looked at me like I was nuts. They said, man, we don't want to work 3 nights a week. We want to be off.
Right.
I thought, I forgot, who I was talking to here. But, in Mid-Atlantic, in Jim Crockett's heyday, when they were on top of the world here with rock and roll and Midnight and Dusty and Tully, and, man, we were doing 3 shows a night. And every one of those were almost selling out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they put me and Gary Roll with the Rock and Roll Express for 2 weeks. And, man, I'd never made so much money in my life, guys. It had nothing to do with me and Gary Roll. You could have put 2 broomsticks in there with them. And rock and roll was so hot, it would have still sold out.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of your favorite guys to work with?
Well, probably my all-time favorite is Brad Armstrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm telling you, I've worked him right before he went back up to WWE. I worked him in some of my shows here. And I'm telling you, he is, there's that whole family. If I had $1 million and was going to start a territory, I'm telling you guys, without thinking twice, I'd hire that whole family. They're just a super group of guys, and Brad's probably one of my all-time favorites. I mean, he's just smooth as silk, and he's just, if I'm a bad guy, he's the opposite of that, and it makes it work.
Right.
See? And it ain't just me going out there wanting to do the spots that I want to do, guys,
mm-hmm.
but the guy on the other side of that ring, he's got to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be the greatest worker in the world, but if that guy in that ring ain't worth a darn, it don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Just like dancing. Them old timers told me years ago, man. I remember I got in a ring with the original Sheik, guys, if you can believe this.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, ain't nobody I ain't been knocked out by. You hear me? And I got in a ring with the old Sheik, and he looked right at me, and the only thing he said to me was, you ain't going to hurt me. I was scared to death. This is the Sheik.
Right.
But it's pencil at all. And he told me that, and it took me 20 years to realize what he meant. But see, here's what nobody understands. If I wrestle in Charlotte tonight, and I come up out of where you boys are at tomorrow night, you think the fans up there where you're at are cared if I'm hurt? They want to get their money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And see, I'm telling you right now, 15 years from now, have you guys ever wondered why everybody up in WWE's already had neck surgery? I mean, guys, there's something wrong. Everybody in WWE, including the women, have had broke necks.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell these kids, if you learn, and I don't know, it's funny if I used to do a move to a guy, I would thank him. Nowadays, it's, are you okay? I tell these young kids, man, if after the match, the first thing you say to that guy is, are you all right? Something's wrong. And that's the first thing they said when they come out of the dressing room. Mm-hmm. Man, I'm sorry I knocked your front teeth out. This guy came back last week with his front tooth knocked out. He went out and done it, put a guy through a table, come back and said, man, it's good for the business. I said, buddy, you're an idiot. It ain't good for it's good for your dentist. It ain't good for the business. And people, these promoters call me. See, when I go somewhere now, I take one of my students with me. And they don't understand. They say, we want you to work with my guy. I said, no, I'm not. Because believe me, guys, I didn't survive 27 years, to go get killed in some little redneck town, from some guy that never been trained, but he watched SmackDown last week and he wants to, catch me on fire. Mm-hmm. See, that don't work, boys.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I get front. Go ahead. I'm sorry for running my mouth, boys.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We just got a caller here. Who is this?
Okay.
The Jobber.
Hey, this is a fan of ours, Jobber.
Hey, Jobber, how are you, buddy?
Great. I was wondering if you could tell me any rib stories.
Man, I've got a million of them. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to buckle down and actually I finished up writing a book. Of course, everybody wrote a book. That ain't no big deal, but I'm going to finish mine anyway. But no, I've had so many things happen. I tell you, one of my favorite was when I first started. We used to do outdoor shows, which that's unheard of now. But Jim Crockett Promotions actually did outdoor shows on baseball, fields, and there's a little town outside of Charlotte, North Carolina called Florence, South Carolina, and we used to run every summer a baseball field. Well, anyway, this night the main event was a battle royal, and I noticed all these old timers kept going into the bathroom, but I didn't pay attention what they're doing. But what they were doing, they were all getting these little bars of soap, in their hand. So anyway, we go out, and I was just this young kid that thought I was going to whoop everybody. So when the battle royal started, it started raining. So I noticed all these old-timers were locking up with me real tight. And I thought, man, what's all these guys doing? But what they were doing, they were, rubbing my head with this little bar, soap. They were lathering me up. So, guys, next thing I know, man, my eyes are burning. And I don't know how many people's had this old cheap motel soap in your eyes, but, buddy, it hurts.
Right.
So after about 10 minutes, I said, man, I can't see nothing. And I couldn't, it was starting to rain a little bit harder and a little bit harder. Next thing you know, I had bubbles. I mean, all in my mouth, my eyes, and I couldn't, what was so funny, guys, is I couldn't find nobody. I mean, I'm feeling around like a blindfold battle roll. And all the old-timers were running from me. So for about 10 minutes, I'm just, looking like a blind person because I got this burning soap in my eyes. And, and the more it rained, the more I lathered up. So you can imagine what these people that stayed there, thought, And so anyway, needless to say, I finally just, eliminated myself out of the battle roll and never got that soap out of my mouth and eyes. And to this day, we stay in a motel. I still run from that soap. I mean, I had it in my mouth, my eyes, and all you could hear is these old grouchy old-timers laughing. And of course, I kept saying, man, these guys really want to lock up with me. They must think I know what I'm doing. But, man, all they're doing is lathering up soap. And then I've seen, that was kind of neat. And I've seen, the old stuff of, guys putting shaving cream into guys' bags. And see, I learned a long, long time ago. When you fight against it, when you first break this, see, you can't even do stuff like that no more. It's just a bunch of old-timers having fun. But, now you do something to somebody, now I'm telling you, they'll go get a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
But, the biggest thing is, and I see this, I try to teach this to my guys, too. Years ago, the ribs were fun. And, we, even when we were ribbing each other, we knew how far to take it, and I tell people all the time, years ago, we never messed with a guy's family or with death. I mean, any kind of angle or rib, those were two real things that nobody ever messed with because they were too real. The guys you've seen within the last 3 years, ain't nothing sacred no more, boys.
No.
Man, they've got families involved. They got people faking their deaths, and you're thinking, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be just a little fine line between stuff that even the boys wouldn't even rib each other, about. And then, of course, it always sometimes gets carried away, and just little things like that. They put, I've had, we used to go pick our checks up on a Tuesday at Crockett's office, and this was more or less a mistake. Instead of a rib, well, they actually put one of Ric Flair's checks into my envelope. And boys, I walk outside, I had 2 days that week, and I'm thinking, man, my check might be about $100. Man, because I used to, I used to hold up to the light hoping that they might slip up and pay me a little more. Boys, I opened that, and I saw Ric Flair's check, and I about had a heart attack. And I said, man. So anyway, of course, I had to take it back, and say, guys, this ain't my check. But, man, just little things like that, and but I kept all my old check stubs for the last 20-something years, and I don't hear nobody complain about money. I used to pay promoters to let me work. They'd say, well, we can't pay you. I said, I don't care. Just let me in the ring. And see, that's what's missing now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't. I know people got to make. I've had people say, well, you don't expect wrestlers to make a living. And I said, yeah, I do. And I'll work with anybody. That's probably been my biggest downfall was in professional wrestling. I don't have a set fee. I mean, I figure, I work with guys. I want to see, little promoters get going, but I'm not going to let no promoter, lose his house.
Right.
I tried to stop promoters from booking so many big names, and they actually get mad at me. And that so I'm learning, I'm still learning, 30 years in the business. I'm learning to keep my mouth shut, but now I've had promoters tell me, well, you're not the only one that can call these guys. We can call them.
Right.
Go right ahead. And then they get a little taste of reality. But, you still make a great, great living. I mean, there's still people that just, you got to... See, the sad part about wrestling, guys, and I don't know if you agree with this, but see, there's a missed generation. I mean, when we used to go to the matches as a kid, where's the old folks at? You ever notice that? Mm-hmm. You go to a WWE show, a TNA show, where's the old folks? Mm-hmm. They're the ones with the money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even come anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And see, years ago, the old folks would bring their grandkids and their kids, and their kids would bring their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's still people here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that bought the same ringside seat for 30 years when Jim Crockett ran here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still mad because they mad Jim Crockett left. you know, you want to say, guys, it's been 20 years, get over it. It was such a part. It was such a part of their life then.
Right. You think that's why it's so big in, like, Memphis, too? Because, you know, Memphis wrestling's still really big. You think it's because they still have the old fans there?
Yep. And see, that's the thing. You know, you can't, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, I do it for a living. And sometimes I got to turn it off, you know, and can't let my kids watch it. And, you know, something's wrong when it's got that bad. And you know what blows my mind about wrestling? They'll have they'll have Benoit on there going an hour with Steve Regal. I mean, it'll be one of the greatest match of the year. Man, he got my vote. Then all of a sudden, here comes a diva, walked right out, half naked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm thinking, now what's she got to do with this hour match that Benoit just went in?
Mm-hmm.
But see, they just throw it right out there.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I'm telling you, you know, believe it or not, women used to have a place in professional wrestling. I mean, they had their own circuit. Of course, you know, Moolah was training them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And most women, guys, were as tough as most of the men were.
Right.
And I still use them. You know, there's still a few that can actually go out there and work, and they wear a decent outfit. You know, years ago, I used to be so proud to tell, you know, people ask what you do for a living. You know, you almost was proud to say I was a pro wrestler. And I'm telling you guys now, you almost got to lie.
Yeah.
You know, just say I'm, you know, I do something else.
Right. Well, sometimes like the same way when you tell people you're a fan. Sometimes.
Oh, exactly. And see, buddy, you're exactly right, guys. So you shouldn't have to make it, you know, I tell people, here's what's so funny about it. I'm still the biggest mark in pro wrestling. I mean, I'm telling you, I still love being around the guys. I love setting a ring up. I love selling a $1 program.
Mm-hmm.
But see, what's happened is most of the guys have forgotten. I'm talking about the ones that are in this business. They forgot what it's like, you know, to be a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all in it. This kid walked in the dressing room the other night, and you could tell he loved Jeff. You know, the Hardy Boys are probably the most copied independent look in all the world. Right. You know, every independent wrestler wants to look like the Hardy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy come walking in, and he didn't have the stockings on his arm like Jeff Hardy, but he had duct tape. So I go up to this kid, and I said, "Oh, that's gotta hurt when you take that duct tape off."
Right.
I said, "Why don't you just get a stocking and cut it?" You know what this idiot said? He said, "Man, if I did that, people think I look like Jeff Hardy." And I think, brother, you got 2 rolls of duct tape up your arm. That's who you want to look like. I said, it's okay to want to look like Jeff Hardy. That's why we got in this business to begin with.
Right.
Oh, but he was afraid, you know, somebody's going to call him a mark or something. So he ain't going to put no stocking. But he had the, you know, they had the green hair, and he had the, you know, the little blue jean look, and I mean, he looked just like Jeff Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like he was almost afraid to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's why why do you think I do the airplane spin here 30 years after Paul Jones does it?
Mm-hmm. I don't think Ric Flair was ever afraid of being called a Buddy Rogers mark.
Oh, no, exactly. And you know what's so unique, too, that here's what I miss. Is, you know, I still talk to Bill After and some of those guys that work for those magazines. I'll tell you how goofy our business is now. I worked a show for a guy last week. This guy walks up to me and is in West Virginia. He said, "Mr. South," he said, "I'm going to try to run some shows." He said, "Do you think you could use some of your hooks and some of your pull and get my federation in some of these wrestling magazines?" And guys, I started laughing. I said, "Buddy, you do know that there's no wrestling magazines left, don't you?"
Right.
And I think I broke the guy's heart. I'm thinking, where have you been for the last 15 years? But I think he thought there were still, you know, you go to your local newsstand and, you know, pick up 20 magazines.
Mm-hmm.
But boys, listen, I can't tell you my wedding anniversary, but I can tell you when I bought my first wrestling magazine. I still got it. Matter of fact, I got some money laying around there. My wife says I ever die, that's going to be the biggest yard sale you guys have ever seen. So y'all get to Charlotte quick, okay? If I die, because it's going to end up in a flea market. But I got all them old magazines.
I actually still have mine too from the 80s.
Oh, it was the greatest, and I'm gonna tell you guys, it was so funny. I just saw Bill Apter, you know, at a one of these little fan reunions, and it was kind of neat. I couldn't wait to. I've met Bill a million times, but I was just going to go up and tell Bill Apter how much those magazines meant to me, you know, as a kid. And here it is. I'm 45 years old, guys, but I was just going to have this, you know, hallmark moment with Bill Apter.
Right.
So I called him in the hallway, and I said, "Bill, I just want to tell you again, man, you know, how much these magazines meant." he looked right at me and he said, George, he said, you need to get a life. So, man, he broke my heart. I said, man, I thought he was wanting to talk about, all of my old magazines. He said, George, you need to get a life, man. And, of course, he was just joking, but, man, I was pouting the rest of the weekend. But I thought, man, there's nothing like, and I still get all them old magazines out, and it's just, I don't know. I tell people all the time in my younger days, losing my family, I lost my parents at a very young age, and in all kind of the trouble, before I come to know the Lord. I tell you, you don't think an 11, 12-year-old kid can get in a lot of trouble, buddy. I did. And but the one thing that kept me out of trouble for a while was pro wrestling. I mean, it sounds so corny nowadays, but man, you could threaten me with jail. We're going to arrest you. That didn't stop me. But if you told me you wasn't going to let me watch pro wrestling on a Saturday afternoon, man, I straightened up quick, boy. Because see, back then it came on the same time, every week. And I tell you, I said, man, I can't, I got to straighten up here. And maybe not break no windows, still no hubcaps. I can't watch wrestling. See, and that's how engulfed I was. And then I found out, of course, you could go to the matches and see, boys, here's what I tell these kids. We just did a free show. Now, listen to this, guys. We just did a free show for 2,000 kids here in Charlotte. I do it every year. And this year was the worst ever. We went in there, and I do like 4 or 5 matches with me and my students. And I noticed out of 2,000 kids, probably 1,500 of, you know what's sad? These kids, they don't even know how to be a fan. Nobody knows how to be a fan anymore. See, most of these young kids have been told by mom and dad that everything we do is fake. So all they want to do is find out how we do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking under the ring for a spring, and the number one question, my question as a kid was I'd ask Paul Jones for an autograph. Now these young kids ask us, is wrestling fake? And guys, I'm listening. Listen to me. After about the 3rd match, I actually grabbed that microphone, and I told all them kids, I said, listen here. If you kids don't just sit down and be a kid, cheer the good guy and boo the bad guy, that's all. And quit trying to figure everything out. Listen, boys, the world ain't no better place since Vince McMahon told everything's will work. You hear me? Why would you want to know? Boys, I'm serious when I tell you, I still believe. I believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. That's why years ago when that show came on, The Secrets of Pro Wrestling. Listen, I didn't watch it, and I won't let my kids watch it. You ain't better off because, see, that's what's happened to this, that's why they were subpoenaing Rock and Stone Cold a couple years ago. Some of these kids were getting killed.
Right.
Little Susie picks up a metal chair and wraps it around her little brother's head and, messes his head off. But see, the reason she does it, Mom and Dad's been telling her that, that chair's plastic. Go ahead and throw little Billy off the top of the house. He ain't going to get hurt. All of a sudden, little Billy gets killed. What do? They subpoena Rock and Stone Cold to come to court. Listen, boys, I'm telling everybody, professional wrestling is not fake. I'm telling you right now it ain't fake. Buddy, listen, I've had Yokozuna, bless his heart, before he died. Yokozuna said on me, and I still can't breathe right. Listen, I had Dynamite Kid superplex me in the WWF ring. I'm talking about that hard ring, buddy.
Yeah.
And I laid there for 2 days. And he actually got mad at me because I couldn't get up. Boy, don't tell me wrestling's fake. And that's what I do at my little training school. We don't really get serious with nobody. We just bring them in and let them fall a couple times. We just had this big old boy that played pro ball at Clemson University down in South Carolina. He'd sit in there, he bragged for an hour how tough he was. I played ball in front of 100,000 people down at Death Valley. I can handle this. He fell down twice. I ain't seen him in 3 days. He said, man, this thing's hard. I said, oh yeah, tell me something else. And see, here's what's so unique about our business. See, years ago, us old-timers, here's what's funny. We wasn't going to give back no money. And I say that because if we had a decent house, we're going to go out and work. Those stories you hear of Ric Flair and Harley Race wrestling on sawdust. Ted DiBiase and Harley Race won an hour one time in a rodeo arena on the ground. You know why? Because it was sold out and the ring didn't show up. But you think we're giving back the money?
Right.
See, that's why I laugh now. These young kids come back and they said, man, there was a hole in the ring. I said, well, don't bump over there. They look at me like I'm crazy. The ropes are loose. I'm saying, so if I tighten them, that means you're going to have a better match? the funniest thing is when I know y'all have heard these guys say, man, if you don't play my ring music, I'm not going to the ring. And I laugh at that because, oh, my gosh, guys. The most time, you know, and the guys that got to have music, I just got one generic CD. I make everybody come out to the same music. And, of course, my guys hate it, but I tell them, man, what are you going to do once that music stops? See? So that's why I don't have too many, you know, I got some great guys. Now, I tell you what's so neat, guys. You know, those two guys of mine that you met up there at that Fan Fest?
Right.
This coming Monday, WWE's going to Charleston. And, you know, of course, we don't know what's going to happen, but they're going to get a chance to go down there and work a little match. And I'm very proud of these guys. If nothing ever happens, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get a job or anything, but just for these two guys to be invited, you dang right, I got a big smile on my face.
Yeah.
Because I want it for them. And see, here's the funny thing these people need to understand. You know, you can go work a dark match. People say, man, I didn't have too good of a dark match. That's probably why they didn't hire me. And I sit back and laugh, guys. If Vince McMahon wants you, he's already heard about you, buddy. He's already saw you.
Right.
See, nobody understands that. You don't. It's almost like it's a big word. You don't hardly ever get signed a contract or a deal from a dark match. Nobody does, because most of the dark matches only go 5 or 6 minutes anyway. Listen, if they want you up there, if TNA wants you, they already know about you, buddy. Especially in this, you know, in this age with the internet and videotapes and DVDs and all that. Man, they done seen you before you ever get there. So, but anyway, those guys are going this weekend. So next
wish them good luck.
That's pretty. So
yeah. Do you have a question from the message board, Incher?
Old school. He wants to know, what was your favorite match?
Probably there's a bunch of them, but probably my favorite ones were Ric Flair. I've had, I worked him in a lot of tags, but now I'm appreciating them more now as I just realize how special it was. But and what I mean by that is when Ric Flair, usually on TV the top guys, see, they didn't get paid for TV. We did, but they didn't. They made all their money off of the house shows. So very seldom did any of the top guys want to work any TVs. But for some reason, and I'm so thankful to this day, is every time Ric Flair, wanted to work with somebody, he asked for me. And guys, I've never been so blowed up in my life. I'm gonna tell you that. It's neat to admit that Ric Flair blowed you up, boys. Let me tell you. Those were probably my all-time favorites. Of course, I worked in Armstrongs, and of course, been knocked out by Ultimate Warrior and all the rest of them. So, but probably Ric Flair. Yeah, that's my favorite.
You got another question from the board, Incher?
Jason Dag, he wants to know, what main eventer ever treat you like the most unfairly?
Well, probably, you learn. I mean, just little simple, kind of funny things now. I mean, I remember one time I let Buzz Sawyer down in Georgia, I let him borrow a pair of knee pads. And I was just young, naive, and I know them knee pads cost me, $15. This is, early 80s. And I'll never forget, he got out of the ring, and he was through. He went to his car. I mean, it sounds so childish now, but I'm thinking, wait a minute, them was my knee pads. And you think I wasn't afraid? I was scared that this is Buzz Sawyer. He eats people for a living. So I said, he ain't taking my knee pads with him. So guys, I followed him out in the parking lot, if you can believe this. Maniac Buzz Sawyer, fighting Tommy Rich all over the country, man. Cage match, everything else. And I went and knocked on his window. He was getting ready to drive off. Here it is, me, 18 years old. I didn't even know where I was at. But I said, excuse me, Mr. Sawyer, but you got my knee pads. He took them off and threw them at me. But I said, man, I got them back. About hit me with his car and everything. Just a little, nowadays that's all, George, that ain't that bad, but, I'm thinking, them's mine. And, and just over the years, I've been treated good. I mean, I remember, I just shared this with a guy, and just little things that, of course, I'm going to put in my book. I mean, I got knocked out on Atlanta TV one time. See, what nobody understands, guys, when you used to get hurt away from home, they didn't fly you back. Or they put you in a corner, and that's it. I mean, you didn't go, if you want to go to the hospital, that's fine, but you did it. They didn't call the ambulance for you. And I got knocked out on television, and, man, I was in bad shape, and I'll never forget this. It was last match on the TV taping, and Ric Flair. And I've told this a bunch. It don't mean much anymore. I've told it so much. But he walked up to me, and with his hand balled up, and he reached down and gave me $50. And I'm, and just walked out, went and called his plane, and this is when he was NWA world champion. But a lot of people said, man, what are you talking about? I said, listen, he was the only one that's ever done that for me. And see, boys, that happened 25 years ago. I ain't never forgot that, and I won't never forget it. You see what I'm saying? Just in case I needed it. Mm-hmm. You see? And it's just little things like that. I tell you this day, and I'll say his name. Of all the shows, I've run thousands of shows. Mm-hmm. And Ricky Steamboat, who right before he went back to WWE, he was one of my, man, I can make some money with Ricky Steamboat. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now, of course he don't work no more, but I had him do a special ref thing, and we made some good money. But anyway, do you realize, guys, he's the only top guy that I have ever used that has brought me money back and give to me. And what I mean by that is when I paid them what we agreed on. And sometimes the houses may not have been good, or they may not have been as good as I thought, or sometimes we still did good. And Ricky Steamboat more than once has brought me. They're probably going to kill me when they, if they hear me telling them this. But for somebody like me, something like that means something to me.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
And of course, you don't hear that enough. But anyway, so that was probably it. I mean, just I had a lot of trouble out of Buzz Sawyer. Of course, me and Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, we get along good now, but, we've had our ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And, most of them, they all try you. I've had my butt, handed to me more than once, but, I wasn't a smart guy, but I thought, man, he's going to at least, know he's been in a fight, And see, I'm telling you, boys, you get out in that ring, and I don't care if you've got 10 minutes. What are you going to do? One of them guys grab a hold of you, man, people, I'm just going to hope for the best. I thought, man, and I lost a whole lot more than I was in, that I won. But I thought, man, at least that guy's going to know that. And I'm going to tell you, some of these guys, it's a respect thing. Mm-hmm. Ole Anderson talks about the first time he met the Road Warriors. He's going down the road, and they're looking at all these big muscle-up guys, and ain't nobody saying a word because they're all intimidated, of Ole. But he gets to Hawk, and, Hawk looks right at him and says, you don't look so tough. And all of a sudden, Ole said, man, I like that. And he said that made him want to hire the Road Warriors, because out of that whole list of 30 guys, Hawk was the only one that stood up to Ole.
Yeah.
You see, and it was just I'm telling you, if it was like it was back then, half the guys in the now, they wouldn't even be in it. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Was it hard working with the Road Warriors?
Oh, they were good to me. Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you how special this is. Right before Hawk died, he'd really straightened up and really tried to change his life. So him and Animal were actually doing some of our youth rallies. Me and Ted DiBiase were actually doing a lot of church youth rallies all over the country. So I've actually got it on tape of my son in a match with the Road Warriors right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and had Sting there, and we had about 3,000 people, and we actually had the ring set up inside a church, and it's kind of neat. My son loves it because it was one of Hawk's last matches. See, mm-hmm. And that's what's so special. I say that with Eddie Guerrero too. These guys did a lot of good the last few years of their life. Mm-hmm. They really tried to straighten up, and Hawk just had such a. I've never seen, and I've heard Sting, Steamboat, all of them talk to kids, and they do a great job. But I've never heard somebody hold the attention of young kids like Hawk did. Mm-hmm. And he did a lot of good those last few years of his life. And I was just, I miss them. I still talk to Animal. His son, of course, is doing so good in football. But they were the originals.
Oh yeah.
I tell people I was getting knocked out by them in the 1980s. And what was so unique about those guys? Nobody else looked like them.
Right, and then everyone looked like them after.
Exactly. And see, nowadays, you got high school kids that look like them. Mm-hmm. It's almost why guys that Big Show, it's almost why he's never got a fair shake. Mm-hmm. Because, see, he is truly a giant, but we all almost take him for granted. Mm-hmm. Because you've got, every high school kid now is 7 foot tall.
Right.
So it ain't like when Andre was here, and there was nobody even come close to Andre. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like we look at Big Show sometimes, and how how easy he moves, and we forget sometimes just how big he is, and it's almost like we don't even look at him as a giant, because everybody in college is over 7 foot.
You think they did a better job protecting Andre, too, as like a giant? You know, Big Show's always in the ring with guys almost the same height as him.
Yeah, exactly.
He takes a lot of bumps.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and you're exactly right. And see, what was so special about Andre is, you know, that's why sometimes they put, you know, Big Show in the ring now with 2 or 3. I'm gonna switch phones here, guys, if you don't mind.
Right, no problem.
But you know, when they put Big Show, there we go, guys. I'm sorry about that. But,
no problem.
Big Show in the ring with, you know, 2 or 3 people now. It ain't like you know, it's not as special as it was, you know, when Andre did it. And because, like you said, most of the guys in the ring with him are as big as he is.
Yeah.
So, and plus, you know, you didn't see, you know, Andre as much, you know, like we do. You know, you see,
Big Show on TV every week, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what was so neat, and that's one thing I miss about our wrestling magazines too, is you know, some of these guys like Bruno and guys like that, unless you had a wrestling magazine, you didn't know much about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they ever came through Charlotte, like Andre did, it was real special. And I, you know, so I don't know. I know, you know, Cables did good, and all these, you know, sheets and stuff like that. But sometimes I don't know if it's helping, you know, our business.
That pretty much goes for everybody. I think it's a lot easier to burn out because you see the same guys on TV every week.
You sure do. And you know, everybody says, George, do you think the territories are ever going to come back? And see, it has to. Here's what nobody seems to understand. The biggest problem now, and I'm out there in the middle of it, and I ain't got all the answers, but I got some of them. And see, the biggest thing is if I said, okay, I'm going to sit in a room with 100 independent promoters from all over the country, and we're going to come up with one world champion and try to build a territory. See, guys, that would never work because you've always got some guy that thinks his guy should be world champion. Mm-hmm. You see? And this guy may not can work a lick, but, you know, his promoter thinks that he needs to be world champion. And that's what's so funny. Vince McMahon never has nothing to worry about, guys, because you put, listen, I sit in a room with one independent promoter and I want to punch him upside the head. I can imagine putting 2 or 3 of them trying to work together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You see, because right now nobody's got nothing to base it on. Unless you put in the old tape like me and you were talking about, guys, what are you going to compare it to?
Right.
I mean, listen, I'm telling you, boys, and then, you know, don't even get me started on all this backyard crap, you know. And I mean, you know, and that's the sad part. Years ago, you know, I remember as a kid asking Paul Jones where he got his wrestling boots at. Son, you would have thought I insulted him. He cussed me, and I was his fan. But you didn't ask that.
Right.
You know, that was unheard of. Heck, nowadays, you know, if somebody don't want me to train them, they say, I don't need you to train me. I'll just go buy a ring. I'm telling you, guys, I can take you. If you was in Charlotte with me right now, I can take you to like 6 rings. People got them in their backyards. You know, people, you buy anything you want. Hey, you look just like Ric Flair on the internet. I'm telling you. Don't mean you know what you're doing. Right. You look just like
you. You can buy the belt.
Oh, you sure can, even with his nameplate on it.
Right. I actually have one.
Oh man, I'm like that too, buddy. I know. And you see, it's just the prestigious thing, you know, and that's what I miss more than anything. That's why I tell all these kids all the time, you know, I used to be out, you know, going out to eat with my family, and somebody'd always walk up and said, let me ask you, is wrestling fake? And I'd always say, no, it's not. And of course, you know, you couldn't never tell them what they wanted to hear, and they'd always say, oh, yes, it is. So, you know, me and my thinking, I said, man, I'm going to use reverse psychology. I said, next person to ask me, I'm going to tell them it is. Same thing. Guy comes up, says, wrestling fake. I said, yep, sure is. He said, no, it's not. I'm thinking, wait a minute here. They just want to argue. So I finally, you know, now the guy's telling me it's not fake. So I'm thinking, you know, so all I do now, guys, is the last 10 years, I just invite them down to my little training center. Just they come back there and, you know, if nothing else, they leave. They might leave hating me, but they leave with a little different respect. You know, and those guys in even WWE, I mean, that stuff gets carried away, but those guys are unbelievable, you know, athletes. And, I mean, buddy, when you hit, I'm telling you, when somebody throws you, you hit. I don't care. Oh, yeah, they taught us how to land. That don't make it no softer.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you put 1,000 people out there. Now all of a sudden you've got to entertain them. And that's one thing I've learned. You very seldom will hear fans chant, boring at my shows. It ain't because the matches are all, all that good. It's just they know if they chant that during my match, I'm going to sit down right on my butt till they shut up. Because that's one thing I've learned, and I tell my guys this. You're the star. These people are not. They bought the ticket to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all know this as well as I do, guys. What does most young guys do in a match? When they start chanting boring, man, they speed it up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They do 100 more high spots.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't understand is that's what's got them to chant boring to begin with.
Right.
And see, there's just a law. There used to be, Bret Hart even talked about it. There used to be an art form to, either getting heat up on a guy. I tell these fans all the time, or my students. I see these guys that want to be, big bad heels come out of the dressing room. First thing they do is get on a microphone and start cussing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's the tackiest. If I want to be cussed out, I'll just go to the local hangout, man.
Right.
There's no art form to somebody cussing me out. So you can't prove nothing to me by just that. And the biggest thing I get to get people mad at me, this sounds crazy, is when I invite them to go to church with me. That sounds crazy. But I can stand up there and cuss them all day long, and they're used to that. But if I say, you better sit down before I take you to church with me, man, they want to kill me. And see, guys, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. You tell me the last time that you've seen anybody hit the ring. I asked the guy this the other day. Fans, when's the last time you've seen a fan get so mad? I don't think it's happened in 10 years. Years ago, you had to have security. I go to these shows now, and the first question these buildings ask me, they say, how many security guys do you need? And I start laughing. I tell them, I said, I wish wrestling was so believable that you needed security guys.
Yeah.
Nowadays, guys, you can give a fan a brick to throw, and they wouldn't even throw it. Nothing. I'm sure nobody hits the ring like they used to.
Yeah.
And see, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's very rare if you see it.
It very is.
Yeah.
And you even watch it now. I'll tell you a perfect example, guys. When years ago they did a little deal where they left Steamboat laying. Flair had left him laying. They were going to stretch Steamboat out, and they took the ropes off the ring, and they had the medics come, and this was so believable. They even took Steamboat's boots off of him in the ring. This guy, we think he's dying, and people crying. It's unbelievable. And a couple months ago they tried to do the same thing with Rey Mysterio. They about beat him to death. Here comes the ambulance. And I noticed as I was looking, there was nobody even caring. They would pan the crowd, and you got all these teenage guys doing muscle poses. And I'm thinking, now your heroes in the ring dead.
Right.
And this kid's pulling his t-shirt up doing a muscle pose.
Right, just wanted to get noticed.
I'm thinking, shouldn't you be worried about your top babyface being dead? And see, that's what's gone. And you know what they used to do for that angle, even with Steamboat? They would put Steamboat in a hospital for a week.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He'd have to stay in that hospital because people would call and people would send get well cards. And Steamboat would be as healthy as we are, but he's got to stay in that hospital. You see?
Yeah.
And now what do? They caught Jim Ross on fire on a Monday, and on Tuesday he was back at work.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Now even I always think that's weird when he'll say good stuff about Kane on TV because he was the guy who lit him on fire, a few years ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
How can you forgive some guy lighting on fire?
Yeah, see, here's what's so funny. Wrestling fans are, they want it to be simple, but man, they're not dumb. Mm-hmm. And here's what. See, people want to believe. I'm telling you right now, people want to believe, and I know you can't go back and re-educate them and get it where it used to be, but I'm telling you, what Paul Jones does with me, and it's just a big rib to me, is I'll take him out to eat, and he knows how believable that I thought wrestling was. Mm-hmm. Listen, when I was in the 8th grade, Blackjack Mulligan beat Paul Jones for the U.S. heavyweight belt. Listen, boys, I stayed out of school for 3 days. You hear me? I was laid up sick to my stomach.
Right.
I go back to school. They give me a big F. I said, wait a minute. Didn't y'all know Paul Jones lost the U.S. belt? Principal's looking at me like I'm crazy.
I never tried that one.
But see, I believed it. You see?
Yeah.
And see, when I used to take Paul Jones out to eat, he'd say, just to get me mad, he'd say, you know, George, he said, me and the Anderson brothers were good friends. And I'd say, Paul, shut up. No, you're not. He said, oh, yeah. He said, oh, man, we used to beat each other to death and go out and have a beer. And I'd say, no, you didn't. I don't even want to hear that. You see, and that's how, I'm telling you, boys, I had it bad.
Uh-huh.
You know, to this day, I still don't even want to hear that. And see, you know, here's what I tell these young kids I train, those kids you met. 20 years from now, are they going to have the same memories that I got? You know, I don't think too many people 20 years from now is going to be talking about, you know, D-Generation X. I don't. And those are some great guys, but I don't think so. And I'm telling you, boys, I tell everybody, prove to me I'm wrong. Show me when they caught somebody out in a stretcher that if the ambulance, if the hospital gets one call the next day, we'd like to send flowers to Ray Mysterio. What room's he in?
Right.
You see? That's what's missing.
Do you have a question from the board, Barbie?
I do. One of the Moscow Mauler wants to know, have you ever seen the Italian Stallion eat a plate of spaghetti, or is his record all a work?
Yes. No, it's a shoot. You can actually, you know what's so funny is, I actually entered those contests. I knew I couldn't win, but man, I got to eat free spaghetti all day. Hey, listen, it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. We actually held a contest in West Virginia, and it wasn't just for pro wrestlers. I mean, truck drivers, you know, people that work in coal mines, anybody could enter this thing. And I think, and I'm probably could be corrected on this, but without looking, but it was like a pound. He ate up, and you couldn't use your hands. He ate like a pound of spaghetti in like 5 seconds.
Oh, man.
And you can't use your hands or nothing. I remember it was like something out of a Sylvester Stallone movie. We had this truck driver come up to Princeton, West Virginia, and, you know, he was cocky. You know, he was going to take the world record. This guy's over there drinking hot motor oil. Guys, I'm not lying. He's drinking hot motor oil because he said the spaghetti goes down faster. And I'm thinking, you know, this guy takes his spaghetti eating pretty seriously. Oh, and listen, so anyway, we get in it, and I entered it again just for the free spaghetti. And so the Stallion blowed us all out of the water. He blowed that truck driver. I beat the truck driver. That's what was so funny. Man, we had USA Today, CNN News. It was unbelievable. Stallion, who of course he's retired now. He still lives here in Charlotte. We talk about twice a week, but you know, I don't think that record will ever be broken. I mean, it was most unbelievable. I mean, it's sauce. I'm talking, it's hot, not just the noodles, but it's the sauce and it's everything. But he ate a pound of it in like 5 seconds.
Oh.
And but to this day, it's still hard for me to eat spaghetti. Let me tell you guys. But you know what was so unique about it? There'd be 5, 6, almost, you know, sometimes 8,000 people that would come to this little restaurant in Princeton, West Virginia for this competition.
That's a big house.
It was just like a huge festival. And, but you know, the main draw was that spaghetti eating contest.
Everybody wants the spaghetti.
Oh, and he ain't broke it. I mean, he ain't never been broken. I don't know if it'll ever been broken. But everybody said, man, George, you came in third. And I said, yep, I sure did, but buddy, I didn't have to eat for a week.
So if you
man, I don't eat spaghetti all day.
If you ever invite Tyne Stallion over for dinner,
never. Hey, I tell him to eat before he gets there. But I always wondered what that old truck driver, you know, he's sitting there drinking hot motor oil, and I thought, man, they ought to gave him a trophy just for drinking hot motor oil.
He entered the wrong contest. He should have entered the hot oil contest.
Well, it didn't work because I beat him, and he's sick as a dog, you know, motor oil, and I don't know whatever happened to that guy, but he didn't. He sure didn't win it. So, but it was just he had a unique thing, and you know, you said, and what now? It's a competition now, ain't it? You know, they see how many guys eat hot dogs. And,
they got
guys
competitive eating on TV.
Oh, they're making big money on that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, got a little circuit they travel around, and I'm thinking, man, Stallion would have done good in that. But
yeah. It's funny, though. It's like all big guys, but usually like this little skinny, like Oriental guy always wins. Yeah,
well, you know, Stallion was always a big guy, but and I'm getting way off the record here, but he had a unique way. It was just, it was just an art form. He knew what he was doing. I mean, he just never got tired, and, you know, me, I just throwed my face right in it and just ate as much free food as I could. It's, it was just an art form. He won it every year, and but he's got the world record. So it was, it's a shoot, buddy. It's for real.
You guys got another question from the board? No, there's a lot of them.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Jeff Hoylover wants to know: is there one person on the independent circuit that you like wrestling the most?
Well, if it ain't one of my students, and I'm not because I'm the greatest trainer in the world, but I know what I'm getting. And there's some decent guys out there, but I'm not getting in the ring with them, and because it ain't worth my time. See, the one thing I do unique that I don't see it nowhere else is most of these shows you go to, some guys do 12 matches, and that beats anything I've ever seen. I'll do 5 matches on my shows, but each match is going to go 20 or 30 minutes. And see, I go to some of these shows, and I went to a show today, and the promoter says, "You got 5 minutes." I said, "Are you nuts?" I said, "It took me an hour to drive here. I'm not going to wrestle for 5 minutes. It ain't worth me putting my boots on." What in the heck can you learn in 5 minutes? See, guys, you can quote me on this, buddy. Listen, just because you got more crap on the show don't make it a better show.
Right.
It's just more crap. I'm telling you. So I'll do 4 or 5 matches, and if I do 5, my guys think I got a fever or something, man, because they've never seen nothing like it. That's like my Starcade when I do 5 matches. But I give my guys a chance to work. And I don't care if you do the same move over 100 times. At least you're out there in front of people. And I'm telling you, boys, it's just kind of unique, and I'm so glad I was taught that way. But there's not, any experience that I can give a guy or help a guy. I want it to be one of my students, because they've earned it. But every show I ran, I just did my big Starcade show with my superstar Bill Eadie this past Monday, and it never fails. My phone starts ringing off the hook. These local guys that I've never met. And if anybody, if these guys are listening, these independent guys, here's something I want to tell you. And I'm going to smarten everybody up real quick. You cannot just walk in off the street and get on a guy's show. Guys, that don't work. And I'm telling you, it happens to me every time. Here's what's so funny. I just got through setting my ring up. Guys, I do it all. I set the ring up, I cook popcorn, I clean up, and I wouldn't have it no other way. So I just got my ring set up. These 2 guys come walking in. I didn't know them, didn't even introduce themselves. First thing they said was, "Can we get on your show?" And boys, I love this, because this is when I get to throw them out. But I said, "Nope, guys," I said, "it don't work like that." I said, "I got a training school, and I said, my guys are my first priority." I said, "But you can buy a ticket." Now listen to this. This guy looked right at me. He said, "I ain't got no money." I looked down. He's got a $25 TNA T-shirt on, guys. Don't tell me you ain't got no money. I told him. I said, "That T-shirt you got costs $25. Don't tell me you ain't got no money." So anyway, I told him right out, but it don't work like that.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, the guy said, "Well, I just live down the road." And I said, "Oh, well, then you must have saw me back in here an hour ago and unload this ring, didn't you?" He didn't answer. He had no answer to that.
Right, he didn't offer
But that's the thing. If you're going to impress anybody, grab some of that steel and set that ring up. Guys, here's what's funny about our business. A professional wrestling ring is the most important thing at a show. It's more important than your main event. It's more important than Hulk Hogan. Listen, if none of them guys show up and I got a ring, I can still do a show. But I don't care if you've got Ric Flair against Ricky Steamboat. If you ain't got no ring, you might be in trouble. And that's what I've never forgot. Without that ring, boy, that ring's the star, guys. I'm telling you that right now. And see, nobody seems to understand that. But I'm lucky enough to where I can tell these guys. I have guys stand there with a certificate that they bought at the dollar store that says they're a pro wrestler. And they'll stand over on a corner afraid to say anything to them, and they'll watch me set this ring up. And the minute I get that last rope on, they come and ask me if they can wrestle. And that's when I start laughing. Where was you at 2 hours ago, boys? So, but that's all the learning process. But no, I try not to, sometimes I do whatever that promoter wants. I'll get in there with a guy. But, here's what's so amazing. Years ago, there was only one name for one move. I mean, a drop kick was a drop kick, guys.
Right.
Now, see what's happened is everybody's changed the names on everything. And that's wrong. And these guys mean well. I'll tell you a good example. Listen to this, guys. The other night I was at a show, the main event. Of course, Midnight Express was there, and Larry Sabisco was all in the dressing room. These two guys in the first match were talking over their match. And I happened to walk by, and one guy said, I'm going to do a float over. Or some weird name I never heard. So I stopped him. I said, guys, this is none of my business. I said, but listen, I'm here to tell you, there's no such move as like a float over. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And Larry Sabisco and Dennis Condry was standing behind me. And I said, I tell you what, guys, if you don't believe me, you go ask them two guys over there. And I said, if they tell you what a float over is, I'll give you, $500 right now. So I just walked off and didn't think nothing else about it.
Right.
So an hour later, these two independent guys come up and they said, oh man, George, you was right. I done forgot what they were talking about. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, we went, and I didn't know they was going to go ask them. We went and asked Larry Sabisco and Dennis Condry. They said, what's a float over? Dennis says, I don't know. Larry Sabisco said, I never heard of that in my life. So the guy said, man, now, and it's funny because I'm thinking, buddy, if I'd have been in trouble if Sabisco would have told him what a float over was.
Right.
I'd have lost $500, but I knew that nobody had ever heard of that. Mm-hmm. So hopefully these guys will say, well, maybe George knows what he's talking about. See, that's the biggest thing now. Ricky Morton tells the story of he worked with those big, huge headhunters one time. Mm-hmm. And one of the headhunters slammed him and went to the top rope, and they told Ricky to stay. Mm-hmm. And Ricky said he got up and climbed to the top rope with them. So he's standing on the top rope saying, now what'd you say, guys? And see, that's the thing. Just because I may want to do a move, I see guys all the time suplexing guys on the wrong sides. They'll grab a headlock. I got a 6-year-old kid that can work the best 5 minute match you ever seen. So if my little kid knows how to get a headlock on the correct side, don't tell me some of these guys that have paid money. Mm-hmm. See, that's the big thing about these training schools. I have people come up to me all the time, man, said they gave somebody $2,000 to teach them. And I said, guys, you better go get your money back. To see what's happened. The best part, and I tell people, I'm going to tell you that I'm the greatest teacher in the world, because I'm full of it. If you don't, if you don't believe I'm who I am, do research. That's what's so mind-boggling to me about these young wrestlers. They'll give anybody $1,000. Mm-hmm. And I've got there's some examples here in the Carolinas. I tell you stories of, and people didn't even do research. I said, man, get on the internet and see if this guy's who he said he is. There's a guy here that claims that he wrestled for WCW. Listen, I was in WCW that whole time. And this guy here, I'm telling you, he's got a couple students. They believe him. I asked a student the other day, I ran into a student, I said, listen, why don't you ask your teacher to show you one tape of him on WCW? You ever thought about that? That kid said, well, I never thought about that. I said, tell me to show you a picture of him backstage. There's none exist. But this kid gave him $1,000. Mm-hmm. And so usually when they find it out, that's when they come to me. And I tell these kids all the time, listen, guys, I'm honest. I said, listen, the guy got your money, and I got you. I said, he got the best part. Mm-hmm. See, that's when you almost got to break their heart and just be honest with them. See, that's the bad part.
How much smarter is it for somebody to travel 500 miles up the road to go and get trained by somebody they've heard of than it is to travel 5 miles up the road to be trained by somebody who has never even wrestled somebody they've heard of?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I would travel. I mean, and see, honestly, because, but see, and all, and you got to take everything into consideration. I tell people, it's just like if you had a chance to go to Ohio Valley right now. You got to take everything into consideration. I mean, I got guys that's got families. I got guys that work regular jobs that make more money than most wrestlers, but they want to quit that regular job and go to Ohio Valley. Now, it might be better for their career, but right now, I've got to hold them back and say, listen, most wrestlers would love to trade places with you. You got insurance, you got dental, you got a roof over your head. Most wrestlers don't have that.
Right.
But if you can find a decent guy, it's like I tell these young kids. Listen, Al Snow's got a great school. Lance Storm's got a great school. And I'm not saying there's none out there, but forever a decent one, like you guys just said, there's a million guys that's just got a ring set up. And I'm telling you, just because it says pro wrestling on the, I just wish I could meet some of these people that are so easy with their money. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I tell you, I'm so open, guys, I tell them, listen, I'm going to charge you $300. If you walk in my front door, you're going to give me $300. Because it ain't worth my time to put up with your bull crap for any less than that. You know, I said, man, $300, and it's going to cost you a whole lot more. But what I do, and see, here's the thing: I don't guarantee him nothing. I said, the one thing I can guarantee you is I'm going to teach you this business. You may never get a job. You know, 95% of the people that get a job with WWE, it was all luck to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Charles Robinson, the referee that's up there now, you know, he did the little Nature Boy thing.
Right.
He's a real good friend. He lives right here in Charlotte. You know, he's a little blonde-headed ref, and, you know, he showed up at one of my shows one time. I'm kind of proud of this. He's a heck of a photographer. A lot of people don't know this. He'd never refereed in his life. One night, my referee didn't show up. And I told Charles Robinson, the first time I met him at a show, I said, listen, I'll let you take pictures of the matches if you'll referee. He said, man, I've never refereed. I said, here, put this shirt on. Guys, do you know that he went out and refereed, and he was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know that the match on tape that he gave Terry Taylor when he went to WCW to get a job was that show where he refereed for me? Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks he went through all these training schools, and no, he didn't. And Terry Taylor watched that tape and said, man, and you know, it was, you know, Pee Wee, you know, Randy Anderson had actually started, I think he was getting sick or so it was the right time at the right time, the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
To see, it all started with Charles wanting to take pictures. I got a million stories like that. You know, Henry Godwin, you know, the Godwins up in WWF, they just re-signed him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's from West Virginia. He was not a retired, but he was an unemployed truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, for the first year of his career, he's 310 pounds. Solid as a rock. I had him refereeing for the first year. He's bigger than my wrestlers, but he's refereeing.
Right.
And I'm telling you, you know how he got his job? Listen, we was in Atlanta TV going down there, and I was taking him down there just to work TV.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Watts had just come in with his son, Eric Watts. Eric Watts is a big kid.
Mm-hmm. And
Eric Watts was going to go on the road for a week. You know who they had him booked against? Buddy Lee Parker, who's like, you know, 4 feet tall.
Right. Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, yep.
Yeah, so I go up to Jody Hamilton, and I said, man, Jody, I said, I got Mark Canterbury here, you know, 6 foot something, 310 pounds. I said, why don't y'all let him go on the road a week with Eric Watts? Jody said, man, you're right. Here's Mark Canterbury. We're supposed to go home that night. He didn't even have an extra pair of clothes, you know. So you know what me and Tang Stallion done? We gave him one of our T-shirts to wear, put our money together, and gave him enough money to get through on the road, and he went on the road. And he did such a good job of putting Eric Watts over for that week that he came back in town, and they gave him a contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, funny story is, Dusty Rhodes handed him a contract, and Mark Canterbury sat right down and signed it right then.
I didn't read
it. He said, man, you don't want your lawyer to see it? He said, man, lawyer? He said, man, anything y'all give me is going to be better than what I got. I just thought that was a neat story.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he said, forget it. But see, that's how it started. He just refereed for us. And I'm not saying guys don't really go up there and, you know, get a match and actually get hired, but usually it's just, you know, you hear it for years, it's just been in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And most of the time, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Best thing a young guy could do is get on the ring crew. I've told guys that if you can get on WWE right now and get on their ring crew and just get your feet in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
I know the story Dusty Rhodes always said was like when he gave Big Boss Man like his break as Big Bubba, it was because it was because like he was impressed how he got up for Tully Blanchard's
slingshot suplex.
Right.
Listen, that was in Atlanta, Georgia, and Ray Traylor had just come in, and he hadn't even been doing TV much. And see, what nobody don't understand, there used to be this big, huge black guy named Tony Suber that had he was built like a, you know, $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
That same day, he had wrestled Lex Luger, and Lex tried to get him up for the rack, and this guy was just so big, Lex couldn't get him up.
Mm-hmm.
So what was so unique is the next match on that tape was Tully against Ray Traylor. So everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, surely not twice in one day.
Right.
So anyway, Lex could never get that big kid up, and it was that kid's fault. He just was so big. But anyway, I was there. Tully Blanchard picked Ray Traylor up. Matter of fact, I got that tape laying around here somewhere, but he picked Ray Traylor up, and he was super. He took that slingshot suplex.
Mm-hmm.
And next day, Greenwood, South Carolina. I go in the dressing room, and here's Big Bubba Rogers. And then it was, you know, and he was super. He was just, it's sad that, you know, I had the privilege of talking to him about a week, you know, right before he died. So that was kind of he had opened up him some businesses in Atlanta, and was really glad to get those businesses going. And he used to call me Preacher Man all the time, but we'd actually got to talk right before he died. But he took good care of me when I was going. I tell you how neat this business used to be. I was, I loved everybody. I'd work for anybody. When Vince McMahon was fighting with the Crockett's and Bill Watts and everybody, man, listen, there were some weeks, guys, I would be on I'd work for 4 different territories in 1 week. I'd work for Bill Watts on a Monday and Crockett on a Tuesday and Vince McMahon on a Thursday. And, man, I was making all kind of money. I was loving everybody, too. But that's just, and I got tapes here where you can sit down and watch 2 hours of wrestling, 3 hours of wrestling a week, and most of the times I was probably on every one of the shows.
Oh, I remember those times, yep.
And I said, man, I'm tired of that guy. But see, guys, that's kind of, that's what I've always tried to say. I mean, with a lot of these guys that we've lost, Hawk and all of them, and I'm just so thankful, guys. I got Wahoo's old headdress hanging up in my house. I've got, just a lot of neat stuff. But I've always compared it, guys, and without getting too corny, is, my relationship with the Lord. I mean, 13 years old. See, here's what people don't understand. When the hardest thing is for people to love you and you don't want to be loved, that's about the hardest thing you'll ever do. I could care less, as a young kid. I told you I got, in so much trouble. And people try it. They try to set me straight. I got, involved in wrestling and still mean as a snake. And the one thing I learned, 13 years old, I said, I asked Jesus to come into my heart, guys. And, a lot of people say, wrestlers are supposed to say that. And I'm telling you, I tell people all the time, don't tell me there's no God. Man, I'm sitting here right now at my house. I got a little roof over my head. Listen, guys, I've survived professional wrestling for almost 30 years. I've never had a contract. I mean, I didn't do it, guys. And, I don't even argue. Years ago I tell people, because I know, that's why I laugh. I used to go in the dressing room, guys, with my Bible, and people would be telling a dirty joke, wrestler talk.
Right.
And I'd walk in, everybody would be quiet. I'd say, uh-oh, here comes a preacher. I'd start laughing. I said, man, God done heard you. Don't worry about me. Well, God done heard it. But you know what's so funny? I tell these young kids, I think nowadays when you become a wrestler, when you get your boots, they give you a book with cuss words. And I'm talking, I've never seen that like. I think these young kids think the nastier they talk. I'm talking about in the dressing room. And I'm telling you guys, that's one thing, and I'm not no saint, believe me. I ask for forgiveness from the good Lord every day, but I hate that. And you know what's sad? Sad thing in pro wrestling is to hear a guy try to cuss when he don't know how to cuss. You hear me?
Right.
That drives me nuts. And I'll go, I don't care who it is. I'll go, it's pretty bad when I got to go over to grown men and tell them to quit cussing. Man, these fans don't want to hear that. You see? And so what I'm saying is with all these wrestlers, we've lost over 60 pro wrestlers probably within the last 3 years. And I tell this to a lot of kids, these youth camps. Guys on top of the world had everything in the world going for them. But see, what happened is it's over. And now, see, there's only one or two things happen, guys. I don't care if you believe the way I believe or not. But soon, everybody finds out. You see what I'm talking about, guys? Sooner or later, you find out if George was right or if this world says I'm a kook and I need to be locked up in a straitjacket. Because there's no, listen to me, people say, yeah, man is going to take care of themselves. I tell them, man can't even get my order right at the drive-thru. How's a man going to straighten this place up? So what I've been able to do is I've been able to use my relationship with the Lord and do pro wrestling. People said, man, you can't do them both. And see, the sad part now is, this is a funny story, guys. Years ago, I walked out on Atlanta TV against Van Hammer. And I had my wrestling trunks on that said John 3:16 on the back. I was getting ready to go to the ring, and they stopped me. They said, you can't wear that. And I looked around, I said, wait a minute. Here's Scott Hall, his Diamond Stud, with stud on his butt. Here's Johnny B. Bad, with half his butt hanging out of his. Why can't I wear these? You know what they told me? They said, Ted Turner does not want nothing like that on his station. They didn't know what to do with me. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, I just shut down TBS. Little old George South. I just shut down TBS. So what was so ironic, I mean, it was funny because it actually shut down live taping to argue with me. You know what they finally said? They said, if you don't turn them tights inside out, we ain't going to pay you. That's how bad it got.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the whole, I never forget this, when the show was over, I went up to Michael Hayes. And I said, man, Michael, and he's a good friend of mine. I said, Michael, I can't understand what happened. He said, I wasn't going to go out there and preach. I was just going to go out there and have a little match with Van Hammerman. You know what he told me? This is 20 years ago. He said, George, one day they're going to try to use that as an angle.
Right.
And draw money with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, please, Michael, don't say that. I said, surely they'll never go that far.
Mm-hmm.
And boys, as I look back now, oh my gosh.
Yep.
If they do something like that, it's peaceful. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so crazy. So, people say, George, you can't do them both. But man, they've been telling me for 15 years that it won't work. But boys, let me tell you, when I take a ring into some of these low income places, and I set a ring up on a street corner, and I'm telling you, by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I got 500 kids standing around that ring. And they don't know me from Hulk Hogan. But the minute that music starts and I bring out one of them young kids that, y'all met, and they're slapping high fives and giving away some pictures, and here I come out, sticking my tongue out at these little kids, and next thing you know, you got a riot on the street corner, boys.
Right.
And see, the whole concept is, and me and Ted and me and Sting, is when the action's over, I just get a microphone, guys, and I just take 5 minutes, and I just share something with these kids about what the Lord's done for me, see? And I don't sit there and, beat them over the head with nothing. I don't ask for no money, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's so amazing about pro wrestling. See, some of the most greatest times I've had have been on the road. See, most of these wrestlers, people don't see them like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when you're in a car with them, and you're driving, 500-600 miles. And that's what's special, see. And your average fan can never understand that, but you really get to know guys, and you just build a relationship up with these guys. And that's why it broke my heart when Eddie Guerrero and Hulk. Remember, I was in Atlanta TV. Y'all may not remember this. You remember when Eddie Guerrero came in Atlanta and wrestled Terry Funk?
Oh, yeah.
On a TV. Remember, and it was just like, Eddie,
yeah.
You didn't see him much after that or before that. It was just like one little match.
Uh-huh.
And I knew Hector Guerrero for years, but had never met Eddie. But that particular night, I had my Bible in my bag. And I'll never forget this. Eddie Guerrero walked right over to me. And he said, I see that book in your bag. I didn't know if he was going ready to fight me or what. But I said, yeah, so. And he said, I was just wondering if you read that or if it's just for show. And it was kind of neat because even up to the time he died, we used to joke about when he walked over, I didn't know whether he was ready to fight me or not. But he was just wanting to see if it was for real.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm telling you, boys, I'm one of them, so I can dog them. But, pro wrestlers, they'll do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, buddy, they'll tell you they go to Sunday school, they teach, so it's, because see, here's what I tell folks. See, wrestlers are taught from the day they get in the business that everything's a work. And I even believe, 9 times out of 10, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm the biggest Dallas Cowboy fan in the world. Now, this coming week, they play the New York Giants. For the number one. And I know, and I laugh. I tell people, you tell me football ain't a work. 8 months ago, how'd they know the Cowboys are going to come down to the Giants in the big main event for first place? And I know it's not, but that's how you begin to think.
Uh-huh.
And I laugh sometimes because if a salesman knocks on my door trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner, before he leaves, I've ended up selling him a vacuum cleaner. Because I'm telling you, boys, we've done heard it.
Uh-huh.
And I think here's what I believe: pro wrestling should be a college course. Now, I'm telling you, listen, I've got pro wrestling old timer buddies that have been around the world 15 times, can speak 15 languages, but they can't go get a job at Walmart as a greeter.
Mm-hmm.
You see what's wrong with this old crazy world?
Right.
Some of these ex-wrestlers ought to be in school teaching. School.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the experiences and oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. We did a big carnival show this past summer, and we just set my ring up, and this old lady, I noticed she had a little booth set up. She's selling little bottles of something. She walks up to me, guys, and she says, you see this bottle? She says, you need to drink some of this. She said, if you drink it, she said, man, you won't feel no pain or nothing. I said, oh, really? I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll buy some. I said, but first of all, I'm going to get you in this ring. She's about 80 years old. I said, I'm going to get you in this ring, and I'm going to suplex you. And I said, then I'm going to jump off the top rope with an elbow and land right on you. She said, that'll hurt. And I said, oh, but you can drink some of that water, and it won't hurt, right? You know what she told me? She said, oh, man, this stuff in this bottle don't work. Can you believe that? And then she realized what she said to me. And by that time, everybody had gathered around. And I said, lady, listen, you're talking to wrestling's just one step above carny. That's all we are. We're all the same, buddy. I said, lady, you're trying to hook me. I said, I'm one of you. Next thing I know, she's taking her little booth down and leaving. She probably didn't make no money that day. She just exposed her whole little water product. Basically, she's saying wrestlers are dumb enough for it to work on them, but it ain't going to work on nobody else. She wasn't going to let me suplex her. And see, that's what's so amazing, and I know y'all run into this. Ain't it amazing how everybody hates pro wrestling till they want to impress somebody? You ever notice that? I mean, I don't care if you meet somebody that's like a policeman or a fireman, but don't they always know somebody that knows somebody that used to be a pro wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everybody does.
Oh, yeah.
I tell everybody all the time, the Masked Assassins or the Masked Bolos is probably the most trademark infringement name in the history of wrestling. Everybody used to be a bolo. And I've run into people at restaurants. Yeah, well, my uncle used to be, one of the bolos. And I'm thinking, no, he didn't. Well, the funny thing is that I did a personal appearance this summer. We've got a couple of guys here in the Carolinas that go around and they try to play off the Mayberry RFD gimmick, with Andy Griffith, and Barney and all them. And this guy's dressed up looks just like Barney Fife. I mean, he's got the gun, the squad car, and everything. And, a lot here in the Carolinas, people pretty much recognize me. So anyway, we're just having fun, signing autographs, and kids are asking me questions. Well, all of a sudden, this guy, Barney Fife, all of a sudden speaks up and says that he used to be Mr. Wrestling. I mean, right out of the blue, the guy ain't 100 pounds soaking wet. He said he used to be Mr. Wrestling. So he's jealous in a way.
Right.
Guys, you know what I told him? I said, listen here, Barney Fife. I said, you ain't Mr. Wrestling. I said, that was Tim Woods, and he's passed away. I said, so you used to didn't be Mr. Wrestling. So, anyway, I kind of killed his gimmick, before he got started. But I thought, this guy acted like he hated wrestling until he seen the attention that it was getting.
Yeah.
And see, that's what's so amazing. Everybody hates it and don't want no part of it till they can use it. Here's a secret, boys. Old timers used to tell me, George, when you walk away from wrestling, you can't just keep taking from it. You got to give something back. And that's what I try to do with my students, and that's what I try to do with just trying to do, a couple of decent shows in some of these little towns. And that's all it is. If fans ain't got no money, give them a picture. You'd laugh at my shows, guys, when I book some of these old timers or even some of these younger guys. They're out there at their little gimmick tables and they're trying to sell some gimmicks, which I do it too. But I go up there and tell them to give a picture away. Come on, guys. I'm so broke, $5 or $10 don't matter to me, guys. And them guys will fight you. What do you mean give away a picture? I'll sell them one. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, that's the thing. I don't care what nobody says. You take any sporting event, you take them fans away and see how long we all last. We wouldn't be doing this interview if there wasn't no fans, guys. And I think sometimes we forget. I think that's what's wrong now is we think we can do anything we want in that ring, and people are just going to keep coming back. And they're not. And see, I know how hard it was when I started. You imagine now when it got I know here in Charlotte, now we got the Panthers and, man, we got 4 Coliseums here in Charlotte, North Carolina. They don't even know what to do with 3 of them. We got minor league baseball, basketball, everything. So now it's pro wrestling. People say Jim Crockett needs to come back to Charlotte. And I'm thinking, man, he wouldn't last now because he's got so much stuff to compete with.
Yeah.
See, and that's what's... but here's the funny thing, and y'all know this. Years ago when a high school wanted to raise money for a football team or the band needed new instruments, it was always pro wrestling, guys. That was the biggest fundraiser in the world. And see what's happened, some of these newer people at these schools, I deal with them every week. They've never heard of that. So what they want, they want my kids to bring some gift wrap home or some candy that costs outrageous, and, they wonder why they can't raise no money. And I try to, some of them will let me do a little fundraiser. But, wrestlers are their own worst enemies, guys. You know that. Usually, a guy, a show's went in and, they broke tables and broke chairs and knocked holes in walls, and so they just, people get a bad taste.
Is that bad? Like some of the real hardcore wrestlings do that. They give wrestling a bad name, maybe like
oh yeah.
They're doing like barbed wire matches or
Yeah, and see, here's what's so funny, guys. Listen to me, and it ain't that I know everything. See, there was a time and a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in barbed wire match, and in Bill Eadie, we just had a cage match for my EWA World Belt. But guys, and I know most fans that hear this ain't going to understand that, but it meant something. We milked this thing for about 6 months. And see, nobody seems to understand that. And I know nowadays they throw cages and exploding barbed wires and all that, but it don't mean a hill of beans.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it's every match on the card.
Oh, it's everything. And what TNA did, what they do, they just did like 8 cage matches.
Yeah,
the first one don't work.
Cage matches, right?
Oh, if the first one don't work, that don't mean 7 more is going to work.
Right. Well, actually, really, by the end of that show, you don't even pay attention to the cage because every match.
It's like it's part of the ring.
Right.
Guys, listen, I'm gonna tell you. You know, the biggest question I get asked now is, what do I think of that TNA new 8-sided, 6-sided ring? And guys, I've voiced my opinion. You know, there's some. I hate it. I mean, 2 years ago, when you wanted wrestling to get better in the ratings, or you wanted more people to watch, you just had a meeting with your talent, and you said, guys, let's work harder. You didn't go out and change the foundation of this profession. And you know what's so ironic? I've been there. I've helped them set that ring up. You couldn't pay me enough to set that ring up. That is the most uniquest thing. But here's what I'm saying. Do you think the matches are even better? Guys, listen. You can only hit one rope at a time. You hear me?
Right.
If you want to impress me, take all the ropes down. Let's see you have a match then.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, this ain't the end. I'm telling you, next there's going to be a 12-sided ring out there. And then what the heck these people going to do? That's what's so ironic about it. You can't change the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you can't. And so, but that's what's so, you know, I get all carried away here, but it just, you know, just make the guys go work harder.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to tell somebody they didn't have a good match, but that don't mean the next match ain't going to be better.
I just want to go back quick there for a second when you said about the John 3:16 on your tights.
Yep.
What went through your mind when you saw, you know, the debut of like the Austin 3:16 and that became so big?
Well, you know what, and everybody, you know, I hated it, honestly. Now, I love Stone Cold, and I know him. You know, a lot of people think he just happened to drink a beer one day and started becoming a millionaire, but he paid a lot of dues, boys. I mean, he did, and he'll be the first to tell you that. But, you know, and the sad part about that whole thing is, you know, everybody says, okay, what about Jake Roberts? Guys, listen. I believe with all my heart, you know, that Jake Roberts really tried to change. To see what happens, and I'm guilty of this, and I know if y'all had, you know, if you had a buddy that was into everything, and all of a sudden he says, man, I'm going to stop, you almost get overly excited. You know what we did wrong with Jake Roberts is when we heard he tried to stop and change, we started putting him in every church that we could find. I mean, and we meant good by it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is we wanted everybody to hear how Jake had changed. But see what happened, guys? It's like in our business. When you first change and get a relationship with the Lord, you've got to grow. You know, the Bible talks about being a baby. And you've got to take time. And you've got to find a little church. And you've got to grow. And see, poor Jake, it's like a lot of them, I mean, he didn't have a chance for that. You know, I saw him 2 years ago in Florida, and I hugged his neck. And I said, Jake, I've known Jake since our Bill Watts days. And I said, Jake, how you doing? You know what he did? He looked right at me, and he said, man, you're the first person in 5 years that's asked me that.
Mm-hmm. And
boys, I'm telling you, you know, that's all that matters when the smoke clears. But I'm telling you, when I saw them do this, you know, in a way, guys, this is kind of funny now, but it helped my ministry. I had people come up to me with a Bible in their hand saying, man, I can't find it. Can you show me where it says Austin 3:16? And they want me to show it in the Bible. But what I do is I say, guys, just keep reading. You're going to find it. But I give them an opportunity to open up that book when they may never even read the Bible. See, I've always believed that God can take anything that's bad and turn it into good. And, you know, and then it becomes, you know, that was, one time the hottest selling T-shirt, you know, in all the world. And, you know, and they ran with it and made a lot of money with it. But I'm thinking, you know, and it was funny because, you know, Michael Hayes was like a genius. I mean, he told me 10 years prior to that they would use that, and it was just a fluke. You know that. Stone Cold, y'all heard it. Stone Cold just said it, you know? Mm-hmm. And, but they were kind of playing off of Jake Roberts, you know, that whole, and you know what's one amazing about people? Jake Roberts could come right back right now and get back in shape a little bit and still draw money. I tell these people, you either got it or you don't. Now, boys, I can pump you up with steroids. I can lay you in a tanning bed for 6 months. But that don't mean you're going to draw me any money. See?
Oh, yeah. People still love Jake the Snake Roberts today. He can just come out and do a little promo or just come out of the ring, and people just love him.
Well, he's first. I mean, I love him to death, and one thing I've never tried to do is forget. What he did with me on TV one time. This is you tell me that Jake didn't have some pull. This is when he was like on top of the world. I mean, Jake Roberts. They were selling more merchandise of his, and this is when the DDT. We met people that were naming their kid DDT. That's how hot Jake Roberts were. We went out on TV one time. He said, "I tell you what, George." He said, "Everybody in this building, it was sold out. He was doing TV, WWF." He said, "Everybody in here wants to see me do the DDT." He said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "I'm gonna beat you with a sunset flip." I said, "Jake, you're gonna get us killed." He said, "No, let's just go out there and see what happens." And here it is. I wasn't even hired, and I was afraid they was going to fire me. So we go out, and I get a little bit of heat up on Jake, and here they start chanting DDT, and everybody in this Coliseum's chanting it. So right out of the blue, he sunset flips me. 1, 2, 3. You could have heard a pin drop. I was afraid to go back in the back because I think they're going to blame me.
Right.
But you know what? It's how smart Jake Roberts is. The match is over. He reaches, I get ready to walk out. He reaches up and grabs me on the shoulder and turns me around and gives me a boot and gives me the DDT. Mm-hmm. And boys, I've heard some reactions, but I have never in my life heard a reaction like that. And you see, Jake controlled those people. Mm-hmm. He used to do an interview where when he was being interviewed, he would start talking real low where you couldn't hear him. Mm-hmm. And I know y'all heard the story where, and I know people did it. They'd start cussing their wife. "Honey, that TV went out again. I can't even hear Jake Roberts." And they'd start throwing stuff at the TV, hitting the controller against their leg, and then all of a sudden Jake would start laughing. He said, "Listen, I just made you get off that couch and come and try to work the volume." And he was so unique with his interviews, and, he's basically controlling the people.
Oh, yeah.
He's making some old farmer get off his couch and fiddle with the TV antenna, trying to get the volume back. You see? Then you get mad and you say, "Dad, Bernie, you did make me get off the couch.
I think you always said,
come Monday night so you get your butt kicked."
Right. I think you always said, too, if you talk low, people pay attention to what you say.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Bill Eadie, who I still love and use a lot, he told me that's what Boris Malenko told him, mm-hmm. when because, remember, the Masked Superstar would come out, he wouldn't yell or nothing. He would just use, these big fancy words. And down in Georgia and all over, and he said that's what Malenko told him. Said, everybody else in this territory is yelling.
Right.
He said, "You just go out and talk," and he did, and it got over like $1 million. And see, that's a whole other can of worms. We can do a whole show on just that. I mean, now you've got, some Hollywood writer, that tells these guys what to say, mm-hmm. and you just can't create. That's what's sad, and I couldn't do it. I mean, I couldn't read what some. Here's the funny thing. I always laugh when somebody watches one of my matches and they rate it. They'll give me like a star or 4 stars, and I always see the guy later, and I said, "Now, have you ever been in a ring?" And they say, "Oh, no." So you never took a bump or nothing? They say, "Oh, no, I've never been in a ring. I wouldn't get in a ring for nothing." Mm-hmm. Then I laugh, and I said, "Well, how the heck can you give me 4 stars? I mean, how can you rate a match when you've never been in?" See, that's what made Gordon Solie so unique. Guys, did you know before TV would start taping, he would actually get in the ring with guys?
Right, and take like the moves.
Yeah, he would let Buddy Rogers or Flair put the figure 4,
right.
Just a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Where he sure would.
Like the points of pressure. He used to say that all the time.
Yeah, and so when he told you on TV that it hurt, mm-hmm. Buddy, he knew it hurt. It had been put in it, and that's unheard of now. Oh my gosh.
Do you think that's why he had? Do you think that's why he had such an aura about him, and a lot of the people who were wrestling had a lot of respect for him?
Yes, because I don't care who you were. If you hated pro wrestling, when Gordon Solie told you something, you believed it. Mm-hmm. And it's ironic when you think of Florida Championship Wrestling or Georgia Championship Wrestling. I mean, you think of him almost as much as you do Dusty or Thunderbolt Passion or any of those guys. Mm-hmm. And see, that's what was so unique is, he'll always be. I mean, I've got old tapes of him. I was getting my tail kicked, but I've got old tapes of him actually, saying my name, right there on Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just kind of a neat something to hold on to. But, some of that, I stopped at a Waffle House one night, late, coming up, outside of Atlanta. And, man, I was half asleep. I had to get me something to eat. And I was sitting in the Waffle House, and Terry Taylor and Gordon Soley walked in. And, man, you talking about we sat there for about 3 hours, just us three in a Waffle House. And, you think I didn't pick Gordon Soley's brain.
Mm-hmm.
But see, here's what's funny. I'll go to a show where this promoter will bring in, like Ricky Steamboat or somebody as a special guest. 6 months ago, I go to this show, and I go in a dressing room. Ricky Steamboat's sitting on one side, believe it or not, guys. He's on one side of the dressing room by himself. And there's like 300 guys on the other side. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this picture? You got the greatest baby face of all time sitting by himself, which I love that. That gave me more time with him. But you got all these guys, these independent guys. Somebody ought to be bugging him to death. And to this day, I think when Steamboat sees me coming, he goes in the other direction. Because there's always something I wanted, to ask him. And him and Jay Youngblood is probably, oh my goodness, there's one of my favorite tag teams. And, and it's just, you miss that. You know what made them guys over so much as a tag team? If you saw one of them, you saw the other one. You see? And you ain't never going to have that again. If you saw Steamboat at the malt shop getting a hamburger, Jay Youngblood was there.
Mm-hmm.
You see? These tag teams, it's almost like the Young Rockers would. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everywhere the one was at, the other one was at.
Mm-hmm.
And that made them a tag team. And it's just it's a never-ending battle to try to get some of these young kids. I laugh sometimes. I'll be watching WWE and you'll see these tag team matches, and you got one guy getting beat up in the ring, and you look over and his partner's practically yawning or looking out in the audience, and I said, buddy, you're supposed to be hurt because your partner's hurt. See, and I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if the guys listen, but I'm sure going to tell them. I'm going to tell you that right now. I tell my guys all the time, people may not like you, but they are never going to laugh behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that goofball I just told you about. Told me he had 1,000 matches.
Right.
I mean, come on. Every time I see that guy, I'm always going to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Just be quiet. And see, there's an unwritten code, guys, and nobody will ever tell you this, but, and y'all know this. There's a way you act. My guys are they've learned so much from me. There's still a thing when, if I see an old timer get a chair and put his bag in it, that just happened a few months ago up in WWE. This young kid comes in and moves, I think it was Teddy Long or Undertaker's bag, sit in the chair. And, I'd be afraid to guess what happened to that guy,
Right.
And you just don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just comical, things that you think they should know, but, if nobody never taught them. And, Harley's doing good. Harley Race has got his training camp out there in Kansas City, and he's running some shows. And so there's still hope.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. It's got to start with these guys wanting to love it and, get this contract mess out of your head. You can go make $100 million, but if you end up broke at the end, it don't matter anyway. See? And, I've always learned, I learned from some cheap old timers that could take $20 and make it last a whole month, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm so thankful for. I remember the first trip I made, I didn't know about paying guys trans. You used to ride with guys, and you had to pay them trans.
Right.
So it was their gas. Man, the first trip I ever made, man, I'm sitting in the back. These two old timers are driving. I'm thinking, man, this is the life for me. They're doing all the driving, using their car, and I'm just sitting back here, man, eating a hamburger, enjoying a Coke. Man, and I love pro wrestling. It's like a 400-mile trip. We get back to Charlotte, and I got ready to get out of the car, and an old timer, Sonny Fargo, who used to referee for Crockett. He cleared his throat. He went, I didn't know what was going on. Nobody never told me about it. He said, man, you owe us trans. I said, what in the world's trans? And they got through telling me, man, I owed them like $30. They'd let me borrow the money to pay them back. But, it's so neat how that's, of course, that's unheard of. Nobody drives anymore, just getting a plane and fly.
Right.
But there's a lot of little towns that you can make, I worked for Smoky Mountain, Coronet and them up there. And my goodness, I've seen them draw some houses that you wouldn't believe. Mm-hmm. And I just wish, they could still be in business. Jim Crockett could still be in business. But they get,
They try to become, you think they try to get too big?
Yes. See, the one thing Memphis done for years that I loved is if their stars wanted to leave, they said, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, that's what Crockett should have done. Everybody was jumping from here going up there. But they should have just said, okay, go. We'll just make new stars.
Yeah, or else you can't afford to pay everybody.
That's right. And when you're losing, see, here's what nobody understands. Always remember this, guys. When you bring a guy in, somebody's got to leave. See, nobody understands that. You can't just be stacking your talent over and over. And it's still true to this day. When a new guy, it used to be when I'd watch WWF, and if they'd show a video of, like, Ted DiBiase coming up there as a $1 million man, I said, uh-oh, somebody's fixing to lose their job. And it always worked like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when somebody comes in, somebody's got to leave. And see, it's just sad for the fans because you about ain't got nothing to, choose from. You got maybe two, and you got a lot of old DVDs, and
yeah. Well, I think it's better for everybody if there's more wrestling, on TV. A different variety.
Yeah. And see, I tell people, what I think would be unique, and the old timers used to tell me the people with money ain't got no common sense, and the ones with common sense ain't got no money.
Right.
And that's about true. I'll tell you a real funny story. I went and visited White Jack Mulligan down in Florida, and I love that man like you wouldn't believe. But he was telling me a story, and he's so funny. He was telling me a story of, back in the '60s when wrestling first started making a lot of money, that the mafia got involved a little bit. They wanted a piece of the pie. Well, after about a week, the mafia threw their hands up and said, "These guys are crazy," and left. Now you tell me if wrestling's so screwed up, the mafia don't want nothing to do with them. How bad do you think it is now? I always thought that was so funny that, the mafia, they didn't want no part of wrestling. The wrestlers were so screwed up. And that basically describes everything now. But, I tell people all the time, I go to some of these shows, this promoter says, man, this is my town. Nobody can run in this town. I start laughing. I said, man, nobody owns this town. Mm-hmm. See, more wrestling's good if it's a half-decent show. But more wrestling ain't what kills these towns. It's when these guys go out there and, cut off blue jeans and tennis shoes that are grass stained where they cut the grass that morning before they got to the building, and they go out there and wrestle in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so ironic. I got an old, with my ring, I've got like 3 canvases. And see, I rent my ring out a lot. I may not wrestle on the show, but I'll rent my ring to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I go to some shows that I'm embarrassed to tell anybody. I usually set my ring up and go eat and come back and hope the ring's still standing when I get back.
Right.
But I got a real old canvas I'll put on there for these independent shows, where they break tables and catch people on fire. And I laugh because these guys in the back, they'll see my, I got one that's got duct tape on it, and they'll actually complain about the canvas. I told this guy today, I said, listen, you're getting ready to get put on fire. You think you should be worried about duct tape on a canvas? But he's wanting a brand new canvas when they catch him on fire and burn him up. And I'm thinking, man, I can't believe I'm talking to this guy. I said, man. So it's always interesting, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, we want to tell everybody to go and see your local wrestling and check out GeorgeSouth.com. Anything you want to tell the fans out there before I let you go?
Well, just, God bless each one of you. And, when you think of George South, all those years on television, just, as much as I love pro wrestling, just that my relationship with, the Lord is the number one thing. And I've learned, I've held a lot of guys' hands, right before they died. And none of them ever, on that deathbed ever wondered where that last match is coming from. And it's just kind of ironic that it's one full circle that, all the money, the fame, the glory, the belts, none of it matters in the end. And you got to have that relationship with the Lord. And I just hope that's, I don't want people, I have people tell me all the time, man, I remember when you fought Ric Flair and, you were one of the gladiators that the Mulkeys beat on television, and man, ain't that neat. And I'm glad they remember that, but I just hope they remember that, that guy might have been half crazy and yelled a lot, but man, he sure loved, Jesus Christ with his heart. And that's just, that's kind of neat, and I just want people to remember that, guys. So, but just, have a great, I know the holiday stuff's coming up, but man, just, Just go out and watch a show. If they need anything, I mean, I love to talk, as you guys can probably tell.
Yeah, I think this is definitely is a record for our longest interview.
Oh, man, I'm just getting started. Boy, you have to hang up. My kid's in there drowning in the bathtub and everything. So I'm talking about wrestling. So, guys, anytime, man. You call me, man. We're going to keep this business going, boys.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
You too, man.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Stop everything you're doing, ladies and gentlemen, because it gets the Blackjack Mulligan in your head online.com. Get close to this radio, get the nasty mouth kids, and everybody better get on down to the Fan Fest in August, because Blackjack going to be there, Barry Windham going to be there, Big Nasty Moss is going to be there.